Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. So thanks so much for joining us on Fridays. It's always fantastic to have you guys here joining us, and we've got actually a pretty good number of things to talk about. Actually, I think we're gonna have a pretty packed show in terms of actually PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So I've tried to go ahead and download, I think, the majority of pending builds, although we're definitely not gonna be able to get through all of them, but we're gonna have quite a number of actually builds to be able to go ahead and show off. We've got 3 new product announcements in terms of actually a brand new TUF Gaming 1440p monitor. We've got 2 new updates in terms of our B series motherboards for those essentially 12th or 13th gen series CPUs. We've got some cool UEFI BIOS update announcements regarding not only large density DDR5 memory kits for those of you that are going to be on the Intel side of the fence, and we've also got actually information regarding those that are essentially going to be adopting the latest and greatest CPUs from AMD with the, of course, Zen 4 series CPUs, Ryzen 7000 series, and the X3D. And we'll talk about the UEFI BIOS updates. There's a lot of updates, and also our cool feature that we actually demoed a little bit back in terms of the first look preview for AM5 with our Core Flex feature, which is a really cool performance tuning option that some of you may not be aware of. We've also, let's see, I got actually a huge number of promos from everything from actually routers to peripherals to graphics cards. I'll definitely be touching on some of those as well. So we've got a pretty stacked show to be able to go ahead and jump into. Plus, I've actually got some updates regarding actually some exciting products that I know you guys are wondering about in terms of not only power supply, but also maybe our ROG Swift OLED monitor. So we'll see what we actually have coming. Yeah, Rob USMC is actually asking us about that. So while this show is not focused on that, we'll definitely be touching on that. So hopefully that'll answer your question. Let's see who we have joining us here on the stream today. Wow, we've got quite a number of people. Okay, so it looks like we've got Sumin is joining us, the one, the only, one of the absolute best builders and modders in the games. Snef Computer Design is joining us here. We've got Miguel is also joining us here on the stream. Fantastic to have him. Our friend, of course, across the pond, Mr. Matt Lee. If you guys are, of course, not following him on his socials, make sure to do so. Great place to be able to see some of the latest and greatest stuff that ASUS is doing. A great partner and builder and modder that we've got over there. We've got also, let's see, Rob USMC is joining us here on the stream. And we've got, of course, Michael, of course, another friend from up north in Canada, and Vitor also joining us again for the stream. And Erica is always letting us know that the audio is sounding good. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Erica. Very, very good. All right, let's get ready to go ahead and jump straight into it, guys. We've got a lot of things to go ahead and get into. So as I quickly noted, first and foremost, just as a general update, these are just going to be some of the new items that we're going to be talking about here in terms of the TUF Gaming monitor and the 2B series based motherboards. But as always, I want to go ahead and start things off actually with our UEFI BIOS announcements, because it's actually quite a number of them. So first and foremost is going to be, of course, if you guys are not aware, the latest generation X3D series CPUs essentially have kind of now fully been released by AMD, although there's going to be a little bit of a staggered release with, of course, some of the other SKUs coming in a little bit later. Now, in terms of actually UEFI support, we essentially have launch-ready support available. So if you're essentially taking advantage of one of our X670E, X670, B650 based motherboards, you want to make sure to go ahead and download the latest UEFI. I'm going to go ahead and quickly just show you what that UEFI build looks like. And I'm also going to link you to our PCDIY group post. If you're not part of our PCDIY group, it's the best space to be able to find out about the latest and greatest from ASUS with a lot of information regarding essentially in like important firmware releases and things along those lines. Because especially with these X3D series CPUs, there are actually a few things that you want to have ideally in terms of your system configuration to be able to get the best experience possible. So this not only accounts actually for having the latest UEFI, but things like having updated Windows image, the latest chipset driver, update to Xbox game bar, and things along those lines. So there's actually quite a number of points there that you would want to keep in mind. Let me go ahead and bring up here our little post here, and I will show you guys. So give me a second here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and load up the Crosshair Extreme. This is just what we're going to use for reference. It doesn't matter, though. Pretty much all of our B650, B650E, X670, and X670E boards all have this corresponding update, but you would head over to the support site. From there, you go over into drivers and utilities. You go to BIOS and firmware. Check your corresponding model, and then right here you're going to see right here it says update AGISA version to 1.0.0.5 patch C. That's very important. You want to make sure that patch C is present to be able to ensure that you're getting the best feature set and functionality for these X3D series CPUs. And of course, over the coming months, you'll probably continue to see additional UEFI releases that maybe help to further improve interoperability, compatibility, and performance. So if you're watching on a weekly basis or checking out the PCDIY group, you'll be apprised essentially of those updates. Now, there is a kind of cool feature that I do want to go ahead and touch on quickly here. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. This feature right here is going to be essentially on pretty much the majority of the boards. If you check the tech specs of the motherboard, and it says that it features ASUS Core Flex. The Core Flex feature essentially allows us to do some pretty interesting things in terms of like load balancing, resident to the actual X3D's kind of CCD type of implementation. So you can actually see right here that we can actually prioritize a certain CCD, and we actually have thresholds that can be defined to allow you to go essentially optimize the way that the balancing characteristic works. So if you're looking to kind of fine-tune performance based on your workload or a certain kind of gaming scenario, this all happens directly on a firmware level. And the big advantage of this is that this is independent of any software or drivers. And depending essentially, again, on your kind of workflow and your use case, you can kind of dial in performance further. And this is, of course, part of our kind of our comprehensive feature set of options that we offer within the UEFI firmware environment. So it's not just this Core Flex feature. There are, of course, other options that we have for the latest generation AMD series CPUs. Keep in mind, X3D series CPUs have a little bit of a different kind of performance tuning attribute than you would have with the traditional X series CPUs. So do be mindful of that. And as always too, overclocking does technically void your warranty. So keep in mind that if you're just happy with stock performance, which is fantastic from the part, that includes DRAM and the CPU, because DRAM, even Expo, is also overclocking and also voids your warranty. We have tons of different options. And if you kind of want to be apprised of some of those really cool options, I'd probably check out our actually launch live stream where I dive into the UEFI, but we will actually have an upcoming video that we'll release that will kind of consolidate specifically the performance tuning options that you have available to you on AM5 and how you might kind of go about maybe extending performance if that's something that you're interested in taking a little bit further. But again, if you're interested in making sure that you got the best experience from those X3D series CPUs, make sure to go ahead and update that UEFI BIOS. Oh, hey, AK Mod, one of the best out there. Fantastic, man. Thanks so much for checking us in Taiwan, man. 7 a.m. in the morning, man. Early riser. But then again, with all the work that you do with all your amazing builds, it doesn't surprise me that you're an early riser, man. Fantastic to have you on the stream. Thanks so much for stopping in. Kevin, also fantastic. Thanks so much for dropping in and saying hello, right? So David is saying will this override Windows's choice of cores to use if it thinks something is a game? So the important thing about it is that this is low level. This is happening on the firmware. So ideally, this kind of is oblivious to whatever's happening there because this is happening on the lowest level on the firmware side, right? And so you do not have to engage this. Essentially, think about it just like if you were to enable maybe custom PBO type of operating parameters, or if you were to have like a custom defined external clock tuning parameter, if your motherboard had an external clock generator, and not all of the motherboards do. Those are essentially all going to be hardware-based parameters, and they're always going to essentially take priority because they're happening on that lowest level on the firmware. So you always want to be kind of sensible about which option you think kind of makes sense. Now, the way that kind of the game bar feature works along with the actual chipset drivers and everything that's happening in the OS is essentially being profiled, right, in coordination with AMD, their driver development team, and also, of course, Windows. So it's not necessarily that I would say that it's going to be kind of in contra to it. It's just that this will be kind of the initial priority base. And the other kind of benefit would be is that you can actually further kind of fine tune. So if you wanted to force maybe lighter workloads to be prioritized on a certain kind of CCD, where keep in mind that right now the profiling right now is going to be very much dependent on what gets defined within the actual driver and within game bar and things along those lines. So this is essentially just adding more granularity and control so that if you want to kind of more tightly ensure that something is happening resident to a certain CCD, then that's where you're going to get essentially the flexibility here. Because ultimately current, right, is directly tied into workload, right? So the more demanding the type of workload, the more power essentially the CPU is using, the more current that it's being used, right? The lighter the workload, essentially the lower the amount of current, the lower amount of power, right? So it's fairly straightforward. All right, so that gives us a quick update there in regards to the X3D series CPU support on X670 and B650 based motherboards. Now, guys, I haven't gone ahead and yet posted our UEFI BIOS release announcement in the PCDIY group. It will be going up in a little bit. I just want to go ahead and let you show here, though, excuse me, it lets you see there's going to be a big update list. This week, there's about 100 UEFI BIOS releases. You can actually see right here all the BIOS releases that I actually have to post. So there's a massive number of them. A large number of those, like I said, are going to be inclusive for the AM5 platform, but the other big update that we also have is going to be for those that are going to be maybe on 700 series chipsets. So if you're running something like a Maximus Z790 Hero, or maybe you're running like a TUF Gaming B760 based motherboard, we have a huge number of UEFI releases that are essentially formally introducing microcode support for high density memory configurations for DDR5. Now, the vast majority of users, especially on the gaming side, are probably running either 16, 32, or possibly 64 gigabyte configurations. But in about the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to start seeing much higher density capacities being released from DRAM partners. So you're going to start to actually see essentially very, very large density kit configurations coming to the market. So significantly over 64 gigabytes, and you're actually going to be even over 128 gigabyte kit configurations. And these higher density kit configurations will even be within 2 DIMMs. One of the really big advantages of DDR5 is that it supports much higher densities, even within a 2 DIMM configuration, as opposed to older memory standards where really to go to much higher memory densities, you had to physically have more DIMMs. Now, this is not, again, going to probably apply to the majority of you because the majority of gamers, like I said, are really best served by my recommendation for enthusiast gamers is 32 gigabytes and for kind of mainstream gamers is 16 gigabytes. And if you kind of want to go into that extreme category, 64, but there's no gaming scenario or any permutation that 64 gigabytes has any type of use case. Really, 64 gigabytes is really reserved for professionals, people that are running maybe rendering applications, science and simulation type of workflows, anything that essentially is running residently much more within system memory. But with that being noted, again, those UEFI releases have started being issued out for the B700 series of chipsets as well as the Z700 series of chipsets. So if you're interested in that and you are going to maybe be considering jumping up to a higher density memory configuration, then you are going to want to go ahead and check out those UEFI releases. And again, I will have the update available in the PCDIY group, hopefully either by the end of the day, if not this weekend, it will be posted. I also do want to take the opportunity to bring up a post that I commonly refer back in our PCDIY group. And let me go ahead and bring this one up here. And this is going to be my DDR5 Insights post. And so this post, I've taken some time to go ahead and help to outline really what you need to understand when it comes to DDR5 memory. DDR5 memory, especially if you go from JEDEC to JEDEC, so essentially its base specification to a base specification, is always going to be better than DDR4. But there are a lot of factors to consider when you're talking about rank, density, and population, and how these actually affect DRAM scaling. We also have to account for things like the integrated memory controller, whether you're talking about like 12th gen or whether you're talking about 13th gen. Also, this does apply to AMD. I have it all broken down here, and I try to give you kind of like question and answer based breakdown, so you can see what influences XMP stability and functionality. Beyond this, when installing DRAM, you must account for these items below. All of these will affect your DRAM scaling. Population, the density, the rank, and the IC. IC would be like those chips that are on the memory, whether you're talking about Micron, SK Hynix, or Samsung. It'll take you, probably shouldn't take you really more than maybe about 5-10 minutes to read through. But when you go into it, you'll also see that there's actually like examples that I have here in terms of actually like screenshots that show validation. So you can see actually like examples of the memory configurations and things like that. But strongly recommend, if you're kind of wondering about DDR5 and you're looking for a good resource, check that out. We also have a great actually live stream that talks a lot about kind of understanding DDR5 as a technology that we did with our friends over at Crucial. We also did kind of a little bit of a follow-up where we also did a discussion with Kingston. It's good kind of just information to help you better understand the technology. So make sure to go ahead and check that out. Okay. All right. Let's see if we got any quick questions on that. David's asking, can the IMCs handle that higher density? Yeah, so that's the reason why the UEFI is implementing essentially support for this, because the integrated memory controller can handle that. But as always, and as is outlined there in the DDR5 Insights post that I have, essentially think about it that the higher the density goes, the actual lower the DRAM scaling goes, right? So when you talk about kind of the highest performing memory kits right now in the market, they're generally going to probably be 32 gigabyte kits, right? Those are the kits you're seeing that are essentially, 7,000, 72, 74, 76, 78, 8,000 MT based kit configurations. As you go into these higher density kit configurations, they're going to actually be lower. So you're going to be probably, going, from like 48 to like 52 to 56 to maybe around 6,000. And also keep in mind that the IMC, the memory controller, it's much more challenging for the memory controller to be able to scale upwards to higher frequencies with higher density. So there are multiple premise points that you have to essentially keep in mind. And like I said, this is outlined in the DDR5 Insights post. Tech is noting that he's running 7800 on the Strix-E. I'm probably assuming with 7800 you have to be running a 13th gen series CPU. That's actually pretty good. Overall, the margin, as we noticed, between 12th gen to 13th gen. 13th gen, the majority of CPUs, around kind of 70-ish percentile or so, will generally reach about 6,000 MT and higher. Doesn't mean that you can't support more potentially with a very good IMC, so essentially a very good CPU. But then in 13th gen, we saw that essentially jump up considerably, with probably about 70% plus of CPUs being able to hold actually 7,000 MT and greater. And it's actually not that uncommon to be able to see many CPUs even be able to see like 72, 74. 78 though, I would definitely say you have a better than standard quality memory controller on your CPU. So kudos, man. That's pretty cool. All right. Somebody asking right here, are you able to give any updates on the RTX 4000 Turbo Series? It was briefly talked about. Yeah, so I'm actually the one that told Dimitri and Michael about actually that's something that we're considering. So right now, we don't have anything to show, and we don't even have a respective timeline. There's quite a number of challenges in terms of actually developing a more kind of compact base design and then kind of a blower based design, because at the same time that we want to be able to offer something that might be more compact, right? So maybe beneficial to segments of the audience like the small form factor and the medium form factor community for PCDIY builders, we still want to try to make sure that we're targeting reasonable temperatures and reasonable acoustics. Nobody wants a hot and loud card, right? And so that becomes quite challenging. So right now we're still in essentially the design and the development stage for this. Our immediate focus on next gen card, well, at least the next card within our product stack for release will be the Noctua series, and probably after the Noctua series you'll then maybe see some other updates regarding the Turbo series. But again, if you're part of our PCDIY group, you'll definitely find out about that information once we have it available, so make sure to keep it tuned in that regard. Okay, all right, so that takes care of let me see. Yeah, UEFI BIOS announcements for AMD and Intel. Okay, I think we got those out of the way. Very, very cool. All right, let's see what we got next here. Okay. I think next up, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of maybe some partner news. So this one's actually pretty cool right here. So let me go ahead and actually bring this up right here. This is going to be, so for those of you who are, of course, in that small form factor gaming crowd and you appreciate maybe really kind of clean and compact build, and you, of course, like that essentially liquid cool gaming performance, right? Then our friends over at essentially EK have gone ahead and essentially made an announcement here for our Dash I series. So our Dash I series is going to be our mini ITX based series of motherboards. And so EK has gone ahead and made their announcement here for a monoblock for the ROG Strix X670E Dash I gaming Wi-Fi. And so that's this beautiful monoblock right there. So again, if you're kind of wondering about the difference between a standard CPU block or a monoblock, a CPU block essentially is just going to be cooling the CPU. A monoblock is going to be larger because it is essentially going to be covering not only the CPU, but it will cover the actual power componentry. So it'll be covering things like the power stages that you have on the motherboard. And on a mini ITX system, this can be potentially more beneficial. It's not that, it's not a requirement by any stretch, because the power components that we have already on this motherboard are extremely efficient, and they are actually designed to for a certain level of thermal balancing. We actually have options in the UEFI that you can even actually tailor how the actual balancing works, whether it's current balancing or thermal balancing. But you know, the reality is that they're such high performing inductors, even if you took the heat sinks off, you could run the board and it would be fine. So the heat sinks just help to offer an additional level of thermal dissipation performance. But some people also like the monoblocks for maybe what they feel is maybe a cleaner look, or so it is a nice essentially addition that we're going to have there in terms of water cooling support. So if you guys are interested in it, you can go ahead and get in on the pre-order. You can see right there actually what it looks like if you were to go ahead and mount that on the board. So again, your CPU, then your monoblock, and you'll see right here, this is the section, right, where that's your primary power components are right there, and it's going to be making contact with them. So you are all set, you're good to go. EK does show you a little bit of reference right here. You can see right here, I don't know their full test information, essentially what they were running for a load configuration, but you can see ADC, that's actually quite fine. Many of the power components are easily rated for beyond sometimes like 105 degrees. So you can see you're well underneath that, even with the factory cooled configuration, but you definitely drop a nice set in terms of the temperatures when you're going to be running, of course, liquid cooling. So overall, pretty cool option. If you guys are interested in it, I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in there in the chat if you guys maybe want to pick that up, or if you're interested in it. So let me go ahead and drop that in there. Paskowitz notes is just got 2x16 6800 running on my Z690 Apex 12900K. Pretty sure that's all my CPU can do. Yeah, so that's pretty good. I mean, Apex, of course, with the 2-dim topology, you can do better than that. But for a 12900K, that is definitely going to be on, I'd say, the better side. We definitely, like I said, the overall average is about 6000 MT. better quality CPUs start to be in about that 62 to about 66. The fact that you have an optimized 2-DIMM topology, which has less signal reflection issues than you would have like on a 4-DIMM based motherboard, gives you a little bit of more margin. Generally gives you about like 200 to 400 megahertz. So it makes sense that instead of you being maybe limited to around maybe like 6400, you're able to see creep into that 66, 6800, right? So that's actually pretty nice still. So it's pretty good. Z690 though, overall, will also see scaling improvements that if you did have a 13th gen series CPU, you won't see the same exact scaling improvements that you have on Z790, because Z790 has further refinements to the actual signal integrity and the trace layout design. So even kind of board to board, like a Maximus Z690 Hero to a Maximus Z790 Hero, there's a little bit of an improvement if you were to take kind of the same series of CPUs. But you can run even 7000 MT on a Z690, assuming that your memory controller and you bring over is able to run at that, and you bring over something like a 13th gen series CPU. Matt Lee gives us a little bit of feedback. He says that's a beautiful block. There's something about water blocks on ITX boards that looks great. Yeah, and if you guys haven't, one of my favorite builds, you guys can check out the actual AP201 from Snef. He did a small form factor build. It's a beautiful showcase to show how when you kind of go with a nice, clean, compact setup with something like our AP201, and then you go with a water-cooled setup, it can look really clean, really nice. And I think it's really favorable for, I think, many ITX situations, because you don't have to kind of worry about sometimes the challenges and the constraints, like I said, of the thermal envelope. So it is a nice kind of, let's say, way to go ahead and have a little bit more flexibility. Although, of course, water cooling, liquid cooling presents its own challenges, right? All right, so let's go ahead and go into our next piece. So a little bit of a product release update before we start getting into some of our essentially new products and some of our promotions that we have going on. I know that there's a lot of people that essentially have been waiting on this guy, which is going to be the ROG Swift OLED. So this is going to be, of course, our we right now have a huge number of OLED-based monitors. We have, I think 13-inch, 15-inch, which are going to be on our portable series of displays. We then have a 32-inch, and then we also have, of course, our 42 and 48-inch. And so now we're bringing in essentially kind of, for a lot of people, the sweet spot, which is going to be that 271440p based offering with the ROG Swift PG27AQDM. So I know a lot of people have been very interested in this monitor, and you'll probably expect some more information regarding availability and possibly an initial limited allocation that we'll have available later this month. So again, if you guys want to be kept in the loop, make sure to join the PCDIY group. If you're in the group, you're going to find out about it before anybody else. And of course, we'll be covering it here in terms of the weekly stream. But with some of our products as of late, they've been selling out really quick. Examples will include things like the Hyperion, the Azoth, certain of our headsets. Many of our products that we've had, when we've dropped them, they go sometimes in a few days, sometimes even less than that, sometimes a few hours. So if we have a limited allocation, rest assured I'm going to be working to try to give visibility to us in our PCDIY group first and foremost notice. So if you want to find out about it, make sure to join the group and keep tuned. Like I said, probably a little bit later this month, I'll have a little bit more information for you on this upcoming display. At the same time, I do also want to go ahead and touch on that we do have a really great promotion right now on our ROG Swift PG279QM. So this is going to be essentially an LCD-based monitor, right? 27 inches, has a G-Sync-based module, right? Is featuring, of course, ASUS Fast IPS technology. This is essentially, used to be kind of our prior flagship. We now even have, of course, a higher-end version, which is going to be this model right here, which is the PG27AQN, which is the ultra-fast IPS 360 Hz 1440p. This one will be coming in stock probably this month as well. We just restocked this model at $750, which I think is a great price point. Now, why do I bring up these two monitors? The OLED monitor is a fantastic choice, but it is not the end all be all. The reality is that OLED has some definite strengths, but there are also factors to keep in mind. So if you're somebody that maybe does a lot of desktop productivity, right? You want superior sharpness in text, right? You have concerns potentially regarding burn-in because maybe your workflow, you have a lot of fixed assets. You're looking at a lot of text, you're looking at a lot of, fixed assets that might be on screen, right? As opposed to if you're purely gaming, I think OLED, especially with its contrast and its ultra low pixel response, is a great option. There are also going to be some improvements that we have regarding our actual design that helps to maximize brightness. So for some people that maybe haven't been satisfied with LG's solution, we will be offering a brighter display. And we're excited to be able to talk a little bit more about that and show that when we actually launch our monitor. But with that being noted, you're not going to be anywhere near the brightness performance of what you're going to have, especially with something like the PG27AQN, which is much brighter in terms of your SDR gaming performance, right? And also in terms of actually motion refresh rate, this is actually going to be faster, right? It's 360 hertz, right? So even though the pixel response is actually higher, I would say actually the motion clarity is still probably going to be an edge part better here, and you also have advanced variable overdrive. So it becomes kind of a tricky balance, right? Which is the right choice for you? And it always really comes down to, I'd say, what are you going to be doing with the monitor? Are you predominantly gaming? Are you doing desktop usage and gaming, right? What are the different factors you want to keep in mind, especially when we're talking about very similar price points, right? So here, this is going to be coming in at a very similar price point as the ROG Swift OLED. And then, of course, you can also have this great option, which is even cheaper than either one of them. So just keep that in mind. For those that are evaluating, we think that we have a great stack in that regard. And, it's kind of just pick the best monitor that works for you. So whether that's going to be, a fast IPS or an ultra fast IPS or an OLED, we're essentially going to have you covered on either side of the fence. All right. Let me go ahead and Rob, USMC is saying, how do you join the group? Yeah, let me go ahead and drop a link there in the chat. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Give me 1 second. You do have to have approval, but generally I or Jake, the other admins for the group, we pretty much do approvals every day. So usually you should be approved within a few hours. It doesn't usually take us too long at most, or sometimes it might be maybe like a 1 day delay in terms of that. Okay. Somebody's asking, how much will it cost? I don't have confirmed MSRP pricing for you. We will have that very soon, okay? But I can tell you, you are going to be looking around the price point of the AQN. So you're going to be looking at over $1,000 monitor in terms of the overall price point, okay? All right. Let me see. Somebody's asking right here, do you have a release date for the 27-inch you announced last week, the RG? Yeah, so that's the 300 hertz, right? XG27AQM. Not yet. Once we have that, rest assured it'll be announced in the group, and I'll be putting that on our product release calendar. But that should be coming in the not too distant future. Expectation, I believe, right now for that monitor is probably an April time frame. But again, it'll be announced in the group once we're actually reaching a point to a release to what's called channel availability, right? Yeah, Paskowitz, definitely for, I think, people that haven't been satisfied with the SDR brightness performance, we will have better overall brightness performance, but keep in mind, again, an LCD, this is where there's a significant strength in terms of it just offering a brighter image. But especially in our internal testing, we have had notable brightness improvements in multiple actually zones. So there are going to be key strengths. I also think another big benefit that we have is factory calibration. The LG solution is not factory calibrated, and based on our fairly extensive user polling, and I'd love to find out if anybody in the chat actually has done it, but less than 25% of users calibrate their monitor. That means that they're not even getting accurate picture quality, or they kind of eyeball it. Maybe they kind of go, I want it a little bit less red or a little bit less green or a little bit more blue, or they think, oh, let me download somebody's ICC profile or something like that. The challenge with that is that monitors have variance, and they also have to account for ambient lighting configurations and other factors like that. To really accurately calibrate a display, you can't leverage other people's approximate settings. You have to do it with a colorimeter, and it has to be in your environment to make sure that you're getting essentially, WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And the great thing is with our ROG Swift display, unlike LG's display, we are factory calibrating it right out of the box. So when you get it out of the box, you're getting great color quality, right, and accuracy without you having to make any adjustment. So that's another value point, right? So we have multiple value propositions that we feel that, again, really are going to be giving you that if you want the best 27 OLED on the market, it's going to be an ROG Swift display. All right. So I think that covers us there. Just go ahead and see. PGPCs is saying, wow, getting me 2 of them. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I would get 2. I really think for me, if it was me, again, personally, I would still actually, my still normal recommendation would be the ultra fast IPS. It would be the AQN, but I do love the, beautiful contrast that an OLED display has. I would have essentially both. I would have the OLED and I would have the AQN, just because when I'm gaming or watching maybe content, sure, I would consider doing that on the OLED-based display, but the benefits of the motion clarity as well as the much better text rendering. Text rendering is really important for me. I read so much from everything from groups and comments and websites, email, and things like that. Things along those lines. I really, really want to make sure that my text quality is really sharp. So. Yeah, Derek Campbell notes is that I calibrate my monitors, but in a commercial printing, I work in commercial printing for many years and it just became a habit. Yeah, those are probably the only people's, plus not a lot of people necessarily have a colorimeter. It's not super expensive. You can get a good colorimeter for about $100 to $150, but some people don't essentially even have a colorimeter, right? And so it's just sometimes, you know, that's why it doesn't surprise me that, again, in our polling, less than 25% of users actually calibrate their monitors. And that is actually a key differentiating point. Again, if you're wondering between like TUF Gaming and ROG Strix, all ROG Strix monitors get factory calibrated, where TUF Gaming, they can actually have very, very good color rendering performance, but it will be even better once it's actually calibrated. And the reason why that is important for you to understand between kind of one model to another is that it does add costs, because there's additional time in terms of the factory production where it actually has to stop essentially the production process, right? And the actually panel has to actually go through a colorimeter process. It has to be tuned and has to be calibrated and has to hit a specific target. And then from there, then it can kind of continue forward. And if it doesn't hit that, then that actually monitor gets bumped out in terms of production because it doesn't hit the actual corresponding values that we need it to. So it is something that you have to keep in mind. All right, let's keep moving things along here. So we've got our 2 UEFI BIOS updates. We've got that monoblock announcement from our friends over at EK. We also have, of course, that ROG Swift OLED announcement that I wanted to go ahead and note on. Okay, very, very good. So now let's go ahead and just quickly touch on something right here. This one's just a little bit of, I'd say, some generalized feedback. I'd love for you guys to let me know what your thoughts are right here. So I talked about this actually in... I think at the very beginning of the year, essentially during CES, we made some announcements for some essentially new Zen screens that we were going to have. And so I'd love to hear just some quick feedback from you guys. Our Zen screens, if you're not aware, we have really probably the most comprehensive portable monitor lineup on the market. We have everything literally from like 13 inches all the way up to an upcoming model, which will be 24 inches. We have OLED, we have ultra high refresh rates, some monitors that go, 165, 240, 300 hertz, IPS, right? Truly wireless, ones with integrated batteries, ones with touch screens, pretty much across the board. If you want a portable display, we have you covered. But there's one very interesting monitor that we're going to be coming out with, which will be this guy right here, which will be the MB249C. And this monitor will be coming in the not too distant future. And its kind of goal is to align with essentially kind of the new level of flexibility that a lot of us have now when you might be maybe working from home, or you were transitioning maybe from one space in your home to another space. So maybe from your office to maybe the living room to maybe the kitchen, you could imagine maybe actually wanting to be able to kind of take the monitor. So technically we don't consider this a truly quote unquote portable monitor because of its size, but it is still going to be slimmer and lighter and much easier to move from space to space than you would have with, say, let's say our truly portable series of monitors, which might be like in the 13, 14, 15, 16 inch type category, right? But would you guys still classify this as quote unquote a portable monitor? Part of the reason why is a lot of us, of course, use search engines to search for products. And so if you're looking for like large portable monitor, would you type that in as opposed to, let's say, a movable monitor, right? And we think that portable probably makes more sense, but we'd love to have maybe just some feedback from you guys as we're finalizing some of the messaging. You'll see right here, there will actually be a specialized stand that we have. So an accessory that essentially you could clamp to a desk. It's very much like a C-clamp type design that you could have to be able to easily mount this, and you can move it from one spot to another. You'll also see right here that part of the reason why we call this truly what we think is a kind of portable display is this kind of integrated kickstand. So literally you can move the monitor, you could prop it up, and bam, you can immediately be good to go in terms of being able to take advantage of it. Now, it doesn't feature an integrated battery like some of our truly quote unquote portable based displays, which have a battery and allow you to run them directly from that. So you still have to account for, how are you going to be powering the display? But of course, you can do that directly through USB-C. So depending on whether you're going from, like a mini PC or like a laptop or different types of devices, it can still be pretty straightforward. But we'd love to hear what your thoughts or your feedback might be in terms of how you classify that as like a movable monitor or like a portable monitor, right? So feel free to let me know in the chat there. Somebody asking, when is the 7900 XT ROG Strix getting launched? There is no ROG Strix. Yeah, I talked about this actually in our launch, right? You never know if things may or may not change, but right now we have no immediate plans for any ROG XT or XTX based solutions. So right now, if you're looking for essentially a 7900 XTX, we have, I think, already shown that our TUF Gaming models are really kind of top notch in terms of the cooler design. So they're cool, they're quiet, they look fantastic, great overall feature set and functionality and design. So if you're definitely interested in going with a 7000 series GPU from AMD, we got you with a TUF Gaming 7900 XT or 7900 XTX under the TUF Gaming lineup. Now, as always, we've refreshed GPUs in terms of kind of sometimes adding new models, just like right now. We've recently launched like the white series under the ROG Strix. We, of course, launched new white models and dual models, right? We have the upcoming Noctua model, and who knows, we may maybe bring back maybe other models, maybe something like a Matrix in the future. I don't know, right? But as of right now, no, there's no ROG based 7900 XT or XTX, okay? Okay, so that gets us covered there. Let's go ahead and keep moving things along. All right. Did I drop the link in the chat there? If somebody can go ahead and let me know if I dropped the link there for the EK monoblock. If not, I'll go ahead and I'll drop that in the chat. All right. All right. So next up here, I'll kind of wait. Yeah, I'll wait for, I think, the promos until we get to the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. That's fine. So let's go ahead and just tackle these new items pretty quickly here. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our new hardware here, and we're going to quickly touch on the motherboards first. So got motherboards, and we're going to have two of them right here. These guys are going to go pretty quick. So let me go ahead and just bring these up right here. Give me 1 second. All right, so this is going to be a B760 based motherboard. So it's going to be on essentially the non-overclocking based chipset. Of course, remember B series supports overclock in terms of the DRAM, right? But doesn't overclock support for the CPU. So for things like an unlock multiplier. So ideally, especially for I think this class of board, it would pair really well with something like a Core i3, so like a 1300. Yeah, a 13100, right, or a 13400, right, series CPU, I think would be a really nice pairing. Still give you good performance, updated modern specifications. So if you're just looking for maybe a small form factor, medium form factor gaming box, right, or if you're looking for an everyday productivity system, this would be a very solid foundation. You're still going to get modern specs. We have a DDR4 variant available. DDR5, though, critically, a lot of people forget this. It provides more bandwidth per core, so you actually get much better multi-threaded performance with DDR5 than you do with DDR4. So that's part of the reason why we actually now have that DDR5 version, just to help to complement the modern architecture. If you're dropping in a 12th or 13th gen series CPU, you get PCI Gen 4 support, 2 M.2 slots, 2.5 gig Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5 that is going to be on here. You have actually a good amount of actually PCIe slots in here. So maybe if you want to do something like a SAN or a NAS box or something like that, this could be useful if you maybe want to add in something like a 10G add-in card, right? Maybe have some more flexibility, or maybe a multi-storage based card like a Slim SAS card or something like that. That could be kind of interesting. Internal USB-C, you got actually quite a number of ARGB headers there. So even if you're looking for something kind of more entry basic platform for that, you still got RGB lighting support via the headers and of course natively through the firmware, and you're going to be good to go. So I think a solid, nice just option right there. Like I said, that's not going to break the bank if you're just looking for something that's going to be simple and turnkey. I think very solid option in that regard. Now, let me see, next up here, we've got another board with, and that's going to be, I actually don't have it noted right there, but that's going to be 175. And in terms of overall probably availability, I would say availability is going to probably be somewhere about the next 2 weeks or so, as you're going to be seeing in terms of that resident overall time frame. So not too long. Actually, let me finish showing right here in terms of the IO specifications. So let's go ahead and take a closer look right here. So we do have, of course, DP and HDMI. You've got your two USB ports. Because this model sometimes is a little bit also maybe more popular with some of our SMB or some kind of Soho and some of the commercial environments, we still have legacy connectors like the Combo PS2, which probably most of you wouldn't be using in a modern, let's say like, entry gaming system or something along those lines. Two USB-A ports, that's going to be USB 3.Gen 2, and then two more USB 2 ports there. and then along with your 2.5 gig networking. And then again, this one does have that internal Type-C header along with the USB 3. So you do have essentially all the modern kind of connectivity available to you on this board if you're looking for that, okay? So I will drop the link for that one there in the chat. Give me 1 second. And next up, let's go into our TUF Gaming motherboard. So this is going to be another update that we have here in terms of our lineup. This is going to be, again, DDR5 version as opposed to a DDR4 version of the motherboard. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. I absolutely love the way this motherboard looks. It follows very, very closely the new ID styling that we introduced for essentially the latest generation of TUF Gaming motherboards. So this is essentially our vector design language. Really nice and robust VRM heatsinks, high performant power stages that are on here. Now keep in mind, again, this is not an overclocking centric board because it's a B series chipset, but we do have essentially enhanced kind of power limit options that can help you to extend a little bit more performance from these unlocked parts. So again, if you were to run something like a 13400 or like a 13600 non-K parts in one of these boards, you can extend the performance a bit more through features that we have, like through our Intel ASUS Ape mode, which is an option you can toggle in the UEFI BIOS to enhance the power limits. You get that internal Type-C header as well, 3 RGB headers on the motherboard. You have 3 M.2 and all of them feature, of course, heatsinks, which is nice as well. And you're also going to get our Q-latch design, which the Q-latch is going to be very convenient. You get that PCI Gen 5 support for the graphics slot, not for your M.2 slot, so do keep that in mind. 2.5 gigabit Ethernet and Wi-Fi 6 along with Bluetooth 5. I/O right here, you're going to have one Type A, one Type A, Type C, Type A, Type A, Type A. So 6 ports on the rear right there. And that rear USB-C is also going to be a 20 gigabits. So in our polling, close to 75,000 people, actually almost the vast majority, literally over 85%, literally don't have devices that even exceed 5 gigabits. So a 20 gigabit port is 4 times, right, the speed of 5 gigabits. So that easily means that if you even wanted more bandwidth, you could add just like a USB hub to that, split that out four times, and that would give you 4 5 gigabit ports, right? So 20 gigabit port is quite convenient in terms that, especially if you want to spread that out to essentially have more ports, you could easily do that and still have a great deal of bandwidth available to you, right? We have our TUF Gaming isolated audio design, which also comes with our DTS audio suite. It does feature our latest generation Fan Expert 4 technology right there. So you have essentially tons of options there in terms of an AIO pump header, your chassis fan headers. All of those can be controlled in the UEFI or in the operating system. And you do have what's called GPU temperature input mapping. That means that if you connect, let's say, certain fans, you can actually have those fans respond to the GPU temperature versus the CPU temperature. I find that can be useful depending on a number of different types of configurations. So you can pretty much just load it into the Armoury Crate software. You can click the actual input mapping option, and then you could pick the GPU instead of the CPU if you wanted to use that functionality. So this board does have that available to you. Yeah, I think that's probably the majority of what I want to be able to go ahead and touch on for this board. Let me go ahead and see here. That's just a little bit of a clearer shot there in the rear I/O. You also do get your optical out. It's going to be on this board as well. And let me see if anything else is probably important. No, probably not too much. I will also go ahead and note that at least on the memory side, you do, like I said, have unlocked memory support, and you do have AMP2 memory support. Again, if you guys kind of want my pro insider tip, if you guys fire yourself some essentially non-XMP memory kits, which I think I have a post in the PCDIY group that talks about some of the great kind of memory kits that you can buy pretty conservatively, and then use AMP to unlock them to get yourself some high performance like 6000, 62, 64, 6600 kit configurations with low timing configurations, but at a much lower price point than buying a certified XMP kit. Keep in mind there's always a little bit of variability with overclocking. Then you can save yourself some money that way too. The one difference is if you go that route, they're not going to be kind of RGB dim kits. It's going to probably be like a black or green PCB, but you could buy some cheap heat sinks on there, and that would still be quite less expensive than buying like, let's say, like a 6400 C32 kit of memory. But that all just depends on how much of a budget you have and whether or not you kind of want to take advantage of that. But it is a cool little feature that we do have available to you. One other feature here too that's pretty common. Let me see right here if we do have it. Do we have? don't know if we have it right listed here, but this board does actually have what is called QLED core. And so QLED core is pretty cool. Most of you are aware that our motherboards do actually have an LED on the motherboard for the CPU, for the DRAM, for the graphics, and for the boot device. But QLED core is kind of cool in terms of, let me see if I can bring it up here, that it can actually be wired to your front LED that's on your chassis. And the cool thing about that is that this can actually allow you to have a little bit more information for how your system might be working, right, without having to try to look at the motherboard. Because the reality is that when you're looking at the motherboard, you don't always have maybe clear visibility, right, unless you're looking in. So you can actually see right here is that power LED, will actually change. It's actually different depending on essentially on how it illuminates or how it cycles. It'll actually let you know that, hey, slow blinking would mean that there's no graphics card detected, or fast blinking would mean that there's no CPU or there's no DRAM detector, there's an issue that's there, right? Or you can see right here, very slow blinking would mean that there's no boot device. So it's a kind of an intermediate option that you have in terms of just helping to add a little bit more visibility. So this is a cool feature that we introduced about 2 generations ago. Not every model has it, but it is a cool little option that I want to talk about there. So again, if you think you're interested in that, then check that board out. And again, it'll be coming not too distant. And again, I think for the price point, 215 bucks, that's a very nice offering that we're going to have available. So let me go ahead and just link that one there in the chat there as well. So give me 1 second. Go ahead and drop that one there in the chat. There we go, TUF Gaming. And I'm going to probably share the global link, but if you guys are, of course, checking this out from the United States, then, just give it a little bit of time, and the global links should probably be coming up there in not too distant future. Okay. All right, cool. Next up here is, let's see, we've got on the monitor side, we have another new update. This is going to be a little bit more of an entry-level offering right here as compared to the 1440p's that we were just talking about earlier, with some of those definitely high-end 1440p options like the ultra-fast IPS and, of course, the fast IPS or the OLED-based offerings. This is going to be the TUF Gaming VG27AQA1 coming in at $270. So this is going to be very solid choice, I think, if you guys are looking to update to a display where, maybe you're still rocking 1080p, right? Maybe, 144, 165 hertz, right? And you're finally kind of wanting to transition up to, 1440p. 1440p for me is kind of the real nice sweet spot when we talk about actually, I think the majority of users and kind of a resolution that works well for them. 1440p is going to give you twice effectively the pixel density, right? Well, it's the pixel count in terms of the display. And then from there, really be able to offer you essentially much more flexibility in terms of the number of items that you can open up on screen. It's great resolution for gaming. Things are really sharp, really clean. They look great. And a lot of GPUs, really, probably even going all the way down to some 3060 class GPUs can really actually game pretty competently at a 1440p across a wide number of games. So I think it's really kind of the new sweet spot option. So $269 to jump up if you're still running 1080p is definitely not a bad choice right there. It is also going to be 170 hertz, which is nice. Definitely a nice uptick compared to something like a 144. You're getting that higher refresh rate, that higher resolution. You do have FreeSync support. This is not a G-Sync compatible certified display. Always keep in mind that a big difference between forcing G-Sync and having the actual monitor be G-Sync compatible is that actually G-Sync compatible means that it had to undergo testing. And there's literally hundreds of tests that actually have to be passed for it to reach a certified standard. The certification standard is important because if you force it, you can have things like dropouts. You can have like weird scaling issues. You can have just really weird kind of abnormalities that can sometimes occur. It could entirely work, but it could be problematic. So just keep mindful of that. Now, sometimes G-Sync functionality can essentially be added in after the fact when validation does occur, and it's introduced through essentially driver updates. So occasionally when we're talking about driver updates, we'll usually note and let you know, hey, with this new NVIDIA driver update, it now formally supports G-Sync compatibility. So do keep that in mind. Shadow Boost is essentially our own internal option, which just helps to go ahead and brighten up some of the corners, which can be useful in certain kind of competitive shooters. And probably one of my favorite features right here is going to be Display Widget Light. So if you're not familiar with Display Widget, let me go ahead and bring it up. I feel like almost every stream I bring up Display Widget, but it's a really nice and useful feature. Essentially, most of you are probably familiar that when you have to make adjustments in Windows, for your monitor, you can't do it in Windows. You physically touch a button, right? And you bring up the button, you're switching the input, you're changing your brightness, you're changing to different modes. The really cool thing with the display widget software is you can adjust things like brightness or contrast or sharpness. You can go to different profiles, so like sRGB to like say like user mode to like FPS. I also really love the AppSync feature. AppSync actually lets you define a profile specific to different types of scenarios. So take for instance, like when I open up my web browser, I'll run that in sRGB mode, but maybe if I jump into Forza, maybe I'll have, it going in racing mode, right? Or maybe I want to punch up the contrast, or maybe I want to have, sharpness defined a little bit more, right? And so that's really cool because automatically when that executable opens, it will automatically toggle between different values. So I find that really, really useful. So that is a great feature we have with Display Widget. Okay. Nurato ROG, please. That would be pretty cool. I guess, like if you're talking about like a collaboration, right? Right now we don't have any news on any essentially upcoming collaborations, but, stay tuned. 2023, we may have something. So as always, just make sure to keep it tuned. Collaborations and IP kind of co-work is very complicated. It's very time consuming. There's a lot of legal factors as well that happens to apply to IP and kind of trademark policy. So there is a lot of different kind of elements that have to kind of be predefined and verified, and there's just a lot of kind of logistics to kind of work through. But we are excited to continue essentially having collaborative IPs. So just make sure to keep it tuned and you'll find out about them when we're ready to announce them. All right. Very, very cool. All right, so that is going to be the TUF Gaming VG27AQA1, and pretty much that covers everything. Some people do wonder about ergonomic adjustment, since this is one of our more entry-level displays. Our higher-end displays generally have 4 ranges of adjustment, so you can do a lot of customization. This one is going to be a little bit more simple with just tilt adjustment, but you do also have the ability that, of course, you can VESA mount it, and you have HDMI and DP as far as your default connections that are available to you on here. And as always, our displays do feature a 3-year limited warranty. I do bring that up just because some people get surprised by the fact that, like, if you compare this to some competitors, like take for instance maybe like LG or Samsung, many times on their warranties it's a 1-year limited warranty, and they don't even openly disclose anything in regards to a zero bright dot policy. For ASUS and ASUS North America, we, as I noted, offer a 3-year limited warranty, and we do openly have a disclosed policy regarding zero bright dot policy. So, I think that especially when you're probably saving a little bit of money, maybe your budget's not that big for a monitor, it's nice to know that you got a little bit more comprehensive coverage, and you also have more clarity in regards to actually what is going to be covered for your monitor. Okay. All right. So that covers pretty much our 3 new products. So if anybody's got any questions on anything, feel free to go ahead and drop those in there. If not, I'm going to go ahead and try to quickly run through some really cool promotions that we have going on right now, and then we'll probably get ready to start jumping into our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Like I said, we've got a lot of really cool builds to be able to go ahead and touch on for this stream, so I'm excited about them. Oh, that actually does remind me. One update that I did want to go ahead and get into here is Armoury Crate. So right now, actually at the beginning of the month, we are doing what's called a staggered release to our last Armoury Crate update. Our last Armoury Crate update, where we introduced actually the new essentially gradient color patterns and some other kind of enhanced features as far as color functionality, which you actually can kind of see a little bit of that going on right here with this system right here. It was put on what we now have as a staggered release policy. So in the past, what we would generally do is we would push the update out and the update would go entirely live. But to help to kind of maximize, making sure that we're collecting feedback and having things be hopefully as smooth as possible, we are now approaching what we call a staggered release policy, which means we'll release to kind of percentages of user bases, and we'll kind of have an incremental kind of increase over time. So it'll start out like 20% of users, and then it'll scale up to a little bit larger percent of users, and then it'll scale up to the essentially to all available users over essentially a structured amount of days, and that allows our kind of team to just collect feedback. Keep in mind right now for Armoury Crate, there's over 30 million active users. It's a very, very large ecosystem, and there are literally thousands of permutations. We have the largest, most diverse RGB ecosystem in the market when you consider that we have literally every component that we almost produce has RGB functionality, and there's even more complexity of mixtures when we talk about laptops to desktop configurations, peripherals, and then even multiple generations of products when you're mixing in like RGB, legacy, So you're talking about non-addressable to addressable, and some systems have addressable devices like an addressable graphics card or addressable memory, but the lighting on the motherboard is not addressable. So there's tons of different types of permutations. But the feature is now rolling out. So if you do see an update, you can go ahead and take advantage of that. Let me go ahead and see if I can show it to you quickly. Let me go ahead and switch over to my desktop system right here, and I will show you this, guys. So give me 1 second here. All right. So hopefully you guys should be seeing here my desktop UI. This is my system, and what it would look like is once you essentially go down here to the update section, you'll essentially just check for updates. You'll hit apply. I always recommend, if you're not, make sure to have a backup, maybe do a system restore point if you just want to be precautious. You know, pretty much everything as of late has been pretty stable. Really, actually, I'd say from version 3.5 all the way to version now where we're at 5.4. But, you know, there's always different variability, and especially if you're running a mixed ecosystem, so you've got stuff like CAM, you've got IQ, you have multiple RGB software, you probably also have to be much more cautious because you're running concurrent different types of multiple RGB services. But the big update essentially going to be here is going to be that, like, if take for instance, if I went into breathing, you'll see that we did introduce essentially these gradient options. So right here, you could go through and you could have different gradient options, right? And so let me see right here, if I go ahead and change this, maybe do something like, I'm going to do like this and this, where before you pretty much only had a fixed color. So maybe I want to do something like that. And I think that, yeah, I think that's kind of cool. You can also change the directionality. So if I go back now to my system, you can see here that there's actually like a little bit of a gradient, right? So there's right here kind of like the purple, and then you got kind of the blue. You can see the memory is also kind of phasing in a little bit differently, right? So it's got that little bit of that gradient pattern. So that's a cool level of functionality that we've introduced with the latest update. So if you're interested in trying that out, you can go ahead and download it. And the gradient is available to you in different modes as well. So you can see like strobing right here. You also would have the gradient available to you option right there. And Starry Night, that's the one that I was running right there. There's also some other updates that are part of that. I did post that in our PCDIY group. So if you go over to the PCDIY group and you looked under the featured announcements, it actually talks about things also like our customized Aura wallpaper. So you can actually make your own Aura compatible wallpaper from any wallpaper. So that's pretty cool if you kind of wanted to have your wallpaper sync to a dynamic color along with the rest of your system. So that is also available to you. Okay, so you can go ahead and check that out as well. All right, very, very cool. So I think that takes care of that. All right, man, we're getting through these pretty quick. Pretty cool. All right. So next up here, let's go ahead and run through a couple of pretty cool promotions that we have going on right now. I'm just going to go ahead and pick a couple of these, and I will have a bigger post in the PCDIY group that will try to go through more of these. Because I don't want to go ahead and tie you guys all up with them, but there are a few ones that I want to go through here. So let me go ahead and bring up just a... okay, I'm going to bring up Chakram 2 and maybe 2 routers. Okay. Wait, do the keyboard too. We've got too many right here. I've got too many, and we even have apparel too. Apparel's also on sale. All right, so let's go ahead and quickly get through some of these guys. So these are going to be some of our current sales and promos right here. So let me go ahead and just load this up right here. All right, guys, and let's bring some of these up. All right, so first one right here, this is going to be the RG Rapture DT AXE 16000. So this is going to be Wi-Fi 6E quad band is going to be on this unit. It also has dual 10G LAN ports, and ultra high performance 64-bit quad core SoC, absolutely beastly unit. So this is a flagship level. It's pretty much about the fastest unit you can get on the market right now. It's normally $700, right? But it's $70 off right now. That's a huge savings when you're talking about a router with this level of performance. So $70 off right now, you can get it for $630, okay? So pretty sweet unit, especially also, again, not only if you're looking for that quad band support, but you're also looking, as I said, for that dual 10G functionality and that robust chipset. And especially if you guys are running anything like on-router VPN, that high performance-based chipset and the high density for the DDR4 memory that's also on here really helps to give you outstanding performance for running anything on router. So really, really cool in that regard. All right, another one that we have got right here is the ROG Strict Scope TKL. I love TKL based keyboards, right? So that means no numpad, although I'm a big fan, of course, of the keyboard that I've got right here in front of me. This is the Claymore, where I can go ahead and detach the numpad for when I don't need it and attach it for when I do need it. This one right here, though, does include, it come with a wrist rest. It does also have our essentially improved stabs that are going to be on this model as well. These are Cherry MX based switches, not our ROG NX based switches. So keep in mind there are some differences between our NX switches and our MX based switches, but still $50 off right now. That's a very nice savings if you're looking for a very nice mechanical gaming keyboard, right? That is also going to include that nice wrist rest, right? And of course, you have full support for not only hardware level lighting adjustment, which you can use just the function keys and the arrow keys on here, but it also has onboard memory, so multiple profiles on there that you can go ahead and toggle between, let's say, work or different types of games. So that's definitely a nice savings. Another router right here is going to be stepping down from, let's say, quad band. We can go over here to a still extremely high performance tri-band based unit, right? And not Wi-Fi 6E, but it does have the exposed, essentially 5.9 gigahertz band. So very similar to Wi-Fi 6E in terms of giving you better performance for 160 megahertz Wi-Fi 6 enabled devices. Quad core based SoC on here, 110G and 1.25G that's going to be on this unit right here. And you can wire those for either WAN or LAN operation. $50 off. This is a fantastic model. If you consider almost these, you could buy almost two of these for the price of the Wi-Fi for the AXE 1600. It's pretty awesome. And keep in mind that all of our ASUS routers all support essentially AI mesh technology, which means that if you want to pair two of them together for mesh coverage support, you can do that. And that works really, really great for tri-band and quad band based models, because you're always going to lose a band when you essentially pair two nodes together to be able to create a mesh network. Although you can go ahead and keep all your bands by enabling a wired backhaul, which these models also support. So very, very nice function that we do have there. The ROG Chakram X. This is definitely one of my favorite mice that we have in our lineup. Great, especially if you have bigger hands and you want a lot of flexibility. One of the really cool things on the Chakram X is, take a look at that right there. It's got that integrated joystick. And now this is revised from the original Chakram. So we went ahead and moved it a little bit, right, to give you a little bit better access to it. It does also have a concave shape, so it has a little bit better grip and texture. We also added even more buttons, so 1, 2, 3, 4. You can swap this out, so even if you don't want the joystick, which can work digitally or analog, you are good to go. This is also a full wireless mouse tri-mode. It has 2.4 gigahertz wireless, USB-C with our ROG paracord cable, or Bluetooth. Onboard memory profiles, really nice clean RGB lighting design. It has also our full customization options for the push fit socket design. That means that you can go ahead and easily pop these off and swap out the mouse switches, that if you want to go with something quieter, you want to go with something clickier, you want to change it up, you can go about and do that. It's entirely up to you in terms of doing that. And this one supports both optical and mechanical switches, but it does already come included with our premium ROG micro switches. So $50 off for the ROG Chakram X. Great price point, okay? Another really nice monitor right here. If you're looking for a super color accurate monitor, so you're not a gamer, maybe you guys are checking out the stream, maybe you're somebody who's doing photography, videography, animation work, or you're just looking for a secondary monitor that's really, really high quality. Our PA series are really outstanding in this regard. They're factory calibrated. They offer 6-color access control. Really great options that you have right here in terms of really getting something that is focused at giving you great color gamut performance, color accuracy, and the controls for tuning specific to your application and to your workflow. $50 off, and this is going to be a 31.5 inch 1440p based offering. We also offer right now a couple of other promos on our PA series that I'm not noting on, but I'll have to try to see if I can have the whole list in the PCDIY group later today, because we've got like 35 promotions with, like I said, wide range. But $50 off of this monitor, I think, is a really, really nice savings in terms of its feature set. If I remember also correctly too, not only I also really love the ID design here, where keep in mind you've got essentially full tilt, swivel, rotate, all the levels of adjustment are available to you on there. Really nice stand, integrated pass-through support. And our PA series also, let me see if we have them right here that you can see it quickly. I really love this, is that you have 4 USB ports right here. So these are all high-speed ports. So there's 2 right here on the side, and then there's 2 under. And so this is really convenient if you want to plug in something like a camera, a flash drive, an external SSD, different items like that. You don't have to immediately reach under, or if you're going to have something attached here at the top, whether there could be light bar, whether it could be a camera, it could be other items like that, it just also gives you a little bit more convenience. And of course you have full VESA mounting support. So that is going to be another great option. The Cetra True Wireless. This is our full, essentially wireless in-ear monitors. We have them in both. We have them in white and we have them in black. They feature a low latency mode, which is great if you're actually doing videos or you're playing games. And they come with this really nice, cool, included actually little charging case. And you have integrated touch controls, IPX4 certification, which is going to be nice, so you don't have to worry about that if you're running with them or if they get caught a little bit in the rain there, if you get a little bit of a downpour right there. And they do also have integrated ANC, or essentially active noise canceling support, and that can be customized along with more options inside of the actually mobile Armoury Crate software suite. So $20 off, that's a nice little savings. And you can see right here all the little accessories that come included right there. So you get your nice ROG Cetra True Wireless in-ears, and you get, of course, your multiple tips right there, so you can find which is the right tip for you. And they do have nice overall bass performance, nice, good, clear mid-range, and good detailing. I think it's a well-rounded in-ear headphone, so I'm definitely a fan of them in terms of that. And battery life is quite nice, up to 27 hours battery life, and the charger is quick charge certified. So that means you can actually essentially get multiple hours with a very quick charge, essentially short timing spike. Another cool little monitor promo right here, $50 off if you want to go to a larger format 1080p monitor with a little bit of a curve. We've got this guy right here, the VG27VQM. This is 27 inches, 1080p, 1500 curvature on R, and a 240 hertz refresh rate. Okay, I think this is a great choice right here. For those 1080p gamers that want a little bit more immersion, a little bit bigger screen, right? 240 hertz, you're playing competitive, maybe you're doing Valorant, Fortnite, you know, Apex, whatever it might be that you're jumping into. Maybe you're jumping into the latest, you know, Destiny Lightfall expansion, right? $50 off for this guy, okay? This guy just came out, the ROG Strix Impact 3. We just launched this not that long ago, but we've got $10 promo on it. That might not seem like that much, but it's already only a $50 mouse, so $10 drops it down to $40 here. It's a brand new 12,000 DPI sensor, 59 grams, really nice symmetrical base design on this. Optimized, actually, what we call actuation design, where it's essentially almost a zero essentially clearance design, so it allows for very consistent, essentially almost elimination of any type of double clicks between the actual top button right here and the actual mechanical switch, which is on the inside of the unit. You do also have the push fit socket design, which means you can go ahead and customize the switches as well, right? And this is going to be a wired mouse, but I'm definitely a fan of the ROG Strix Impact. I love it. Build quality also on our mouse is really, really great. So if you're looking for something that's just not super expensive, but lightweight, smooth, responsive, good sensor, it's a really solid choice. All right, rounding out GPUs right here, 3060 Ti in white. Guess what? It's on sale. We just launched this less than a month ago, month and a half ago, something like that. Normally $470, $47 off right now. You can get it for $422. This is the new GDDR6. Keep in mind, this is the GDDR6 version, so you get even better performance. Really great option right here if you're going to be gaming at 1440p. You know, I'd say, you know, definitely in that, you know, 120 to like, I'd say like 180 FPS gaming performance, definitely for quite a number of different games. You get the modern media engine with AV1 support. You're going to have, of course, DLS, RTX based support there as well. You get all the supplemental features that are supported within GeForce Broadcast and studio drivers. Maybe you're not a gamer, maybe you're just a creator and you're just looking for a GPU to do acceleration within DaVinci Resolve or Lightroom or Photoshop, right? And you're looking to take advantage of essentially, you know, Tensor cores or CUDA cores, things along those lines. This is a great graphics card for that. It's not super expensive, but very performant. Good power efficiency, cool and quiet design on there, and it looks fantastic. I would pair this with probably our Prime Series or ROG Strix Series based motherboard. The backplate also on here, it does have a white backplate too. And rounding out on the higher end side, we've got the 4070 Ti on the ROG Strix model. It is also on sale. Let's go ahead and see what we got. $105 off right now. That's pretty nice savings, guys. Normally essentially $1050 as its price point, but you can get it right now for $945. So if you want to save yourself a little bit, that is going to be a nice offering. Keep in mind that some people are not aware the ROG Strix 4070 Ti it offers a couple of updates compared to our TUF Gaming model. One, it has a 10-layer PCB versus an 8-layer PCB. That means better signal integrity performance. Critically, the TGP, so the total graphics board power, at default is the same as the TUF Gaming version. So that should be, I think, 285 watts, but the maximum customizable limit is actually quite a bit more. The TUF Gaming goes to 314 watts. Now that's already quite a bit better than a lot of other competitors. And I believe this is actually the highest of any 4070 Ti on the market, but ROG Strix card does 365 watts for its power limit. So that allows for a much higher level in terms of how much you can kind of performance overclock the 4070 Ti if you're looking to do performance tuning, right? So you are going to essentially get that advantage as well. And of course you get that kind of a cooler overall RGB lighting zone that we have on here on the rear of the card, right? With that 360 degree lighting zone design, that really cool bold and bright display that we have, of course, on the side of the graphics card as well. Included accessories, of course, you get the standoff, you get the screwdriver, you get your cable wraps, you get your 12 volt high power adapter cable. You get your little cell phone stand, your your collector's card that also comes in there. And this one also comes included with our Fan Connect 2 headers. If you want to essentially have 2 more fans that you can easily connect to your graphics card and have them respond to the GPU temperature, okay? And wrapping it out on the 4080. 4080 is also on sale. Now, some of these I couldn't even bring up just from yesterday. We already sold out of other cards. We had 4090s, we had 4080s, and some 40 other 70 Ti's. They were also promotion, and they've already sold out, guys. So you do want to pick them up while you can. 4080 right now, $155 off if you want to pick up the ROG Strix. And keep in mind, for the 4080 and the 4090, these are even further upgraded than the 4070 Ti because these guys step it up to the custom milled vapor chamber design. So you get the highest performing vapor chamber, right, that we introduced for the 4080 and for the 4090. But on the ROG Strix exclusive, you don't get this on the TUF Gaming model. One, they're going to feature a higher TGP, and they are also going to feature higher end power component configuration. So they're going to feature essentially a higher phase count with higher performing MOSFETs, higher performing power stages, and you're also going to get that milled vapor chamber design. So you're going to get pretty much improvements across the board. So overall, those are just some of the cool promotions that we have going on, guys. So there you guys go. All right, let me just see right here. Kevin. Oh, Kevin, one of my favorite guys in our PCDIY community. And what's he say? Maybe ASUS could make some more 10 gigabit switches in the future. I could use a 10 gigabit with 4 10 gigabit ports. Yes, it is something that we're actually talking about internally. I don't have a specific timeline, but it is something that we have talked about with our team. Right now, we haven't really kind of pushed out heavily into kind of offering dedicated switch type solutions. Our focus has generally been on switches. But I think that it is realistic to maybe start to see some more of these offerings as not only 10G is becoming, I think, much more accessible, even though it is still a little bit more of a premium technology, but also because of our kind of expanding into our expert Wi-Fi product line, where 10G I think is going to have value to the SMB and kind of the prosumer networking audience. We're going to start to maybe see some select kind of additional networking items that we're going to have available to the market. So maybe in the not too distant future, nothing right now that I can talk about, but it is something that internally we are kicking about. So hopefully you'll see some stuff from us there. All right. I didn't drop those links in the chat, guys. There's a lot there in there. But again, if you guys are part of the PCDIY group, make sure to check out the group a little bit later, and I'll see if I can have posts there for essentially those promos that we do have going on. Okay. And do check out, right now, we do have essentially quite a number of promos going on for different types of shirts and apparel. So if you guys want to pick up some cool ROG swag on that side, we have some pretty awesome promos that are going on right now. Most of the prices on the shirts, they're already, they're not too expensive. So you're already talking about kind of some sizable discounts. So like an example right here is our ROG Asymmetry Windbreaker. This is really cool. It's kind of lightweight, nice to be able to kind of put over like a t-shirt or something like that. Bam, right now, $22. You can get it for $33, okay? The Anorak jacket, this is definitely going to be a very, very premium jacket. This is really great for those colder temperatures, for those heavier kind of rainfall, right, that you're going to be dealing with, and a really cool kind of open flap design in there, right? This one, massive savings. Look, $83 off right now. This is $68 that you can get this guy right here. And let me actually open up the page. I'm gonna open up the page for this one, just because this is a pretty sweet, like the pictures need to be better. I need to, so here you guys can see Really, really cool design. It has essentially this kind of cool little compressed thing to be able to kind of shunt away a little bit of air from getting into your body, make this a little bit kind of more essentially not restricted, but essentially eliminate the opportunity for kind of air and water to be able to get in there as well. You have some accent lights there for reflection. You actually have that roll top integration right here. This nice actually open flap right there that allows you kind of maybe store things like maybe like your accessories, maybe like your keys, a wallet, it could be a phone, could be a pen and pad, different things along those lines. Of course, reflective based materials right there, integrated cinch in there. Again, price point on this guy is really, really nice. And again, you have a 3-layer design. So this is a true multi-layered design, right? Which actually allows it to be truly what is referred to as rainproof. And then critically, if you're like me here, we get rain. It's been pretty heavy as of late in California, but we also get some pretty heavy winds here. Sometimes you can get 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds. And in that regard, having also something that is designed to be windproof definitely helps to keep you much cooler on the inside. So again, 83 bucks off, man, you know, I think that's a great price. Okay. Where was I at? The Kmart, this shirt right here, I think it's like 13 bucks off, 13 bucks off. So you can get it for $16.50. The facial Rico shirt, 18 bucks off too, right? So quite a number of different ones that we've got going on right now in promo. So go ahead and see if you guys want to check that out. All right, guys, PCDIY Builder Spotlight. I've got a lot of builds, so I don't even know where to start. Let me go ahead and open up my folder here. Let's see what we have going on. I haven't downloaded all of them. There was literally about like, I think like 40, 45 maybe pending submissions. So we had a lot of submissions in there, but go ahead and try to get in there. I think for sure I need to have Daryl Diaz build, because he of course is the featured image in our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So I need to go ahead and make sure to bring his up 100%. So let's just go ahead and start with Daryl right off the bat. So go ahead and just get that in there. So again, this is going to kick off our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, guys. If you guys want to be part of this, all you have to do is join our PCDIY community. Check out the featured posts, and you'll see actually like a little bit of a Google submission link, and you can go ahead and fill out that link, upload your photos, fill out the submission form, and you're going to be good to go. All right, so we've got Daryl Diaz. This system is called Black Air. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Where should we start? Let's see where to start. Let's start with the cable management. What do you think, guys? Let's start with the cable management. We'll start there. Okay. All right. Ooh, so this is cool because not everybody always just gives us images, right, in terms of the cable management. All right. Already nicely done here. This is pretty clean. Got nothing to really contend or compete with here, right? You know, sometimes I like having a little bit of a hook and loop faster with different colors just so I know where my cables are going here. But overall, this is really, really nicely laid out, really clean, well executed. You can see right here, you've got a hub, essentially kind of wiring in all the fans. I'm assuming probably one of these goes into an input source, so probably maybe like a chassis fan header, and that's just linked into the motherboard to be able to go ahead and give them all the controls. So overall, I'm digging that. And then bam, here we go. Okay, so it's a very compact build, and you can see it's been packed in a lot, but I'm really digging this color scheme. It's got I don't want to say an industrial vibe to it, but definitely I like the kind of the monochrome design aesthetic that we've got at play right here. A lot of blacks, a lot of that silver. I do like that he kind of broke away a little bit, I'd say, from the monotony and gave us a little bit of kind of more color variation with the gray and the blacks. I think that's a little bit of a nice touch right there. Pretty cool that he was able to fit in the Herculex. So the Herculex, that's the actual same little one that I have right here on top of my Danger Gen chassis on display. So that's actually our GPU mount. It's interesting. I don't know if that is impacting, hopefully, the fan functionality. I mean, at some point, there is a little bit of compression right here. There's not that much space, so there is probably a little bit of turbulence that might be happening over here, where maybe if it was lifted a little bit, that could be better. But overall, I mean, the cable management is very clean. It's on point. I love the full tower heatsink. I'm always happy to see a tower heatsink. I love the way actually tower heatsinks look. The interesting thing is you can see this is actually a mini ITX-based motherboard that he's got in here. It's not an actual a micro ATX or ATX-based board. So he's packed in quite a bit in there. So we've got 3 fans in there, another set of fans there, another set of fans down there, and then he's packed in, of course, a full 40 series ROG Strix based graphics card. So definitely this is going to be a performant, let's say, compact build, right? So Now we pull a little bit further out and we can start to get a little bit of a sense of it from the other angle right there, looking pretty good. Add a little bit of ROG accents right there with the ROG sticker. And now we're starting to get a little bit of those, of course, RGB vibes. So we can see right there that really cool edge lighting design that we have on the 40 series base card. That looks really nice, and I like that he pulled the cable under. You could have gone over too, especially if you're maybe looking at cable mods' adapter cable, right, that came out that allows you to go ahead and essentially over or under, and it is compatible with our Strix cards or our TUF Gaming graphics cards. But I like this look. I think it definitely works. And now we essentially have a little bit of the aesthetic once we have actually the system come on. So here you can see he went with white LEDs. I think it looks cool. It gives you essentially that little bit of kind of that industrial vibe where kind of all the system is kind of working. It's illuminated. You get to see all those, you know, gradation between essentially the black and the gray tones. I think that's pretty cool. The Herculex is not lit up though, so that would be kind of cool to see the Herculex lit up. What is your guys' thoughts? Would you have kept it white, or maybe would you have added in an RGB color? I think this could kind of been maybe cool, maybe going with something like a blue. I think blue could have kind of worked in here with essentially this gray and kind of the black vibes. I think blue would have worked really, really well here. So let's see. I think those are all our images. Yeah, for this one. Do we have any other images? Or just those? Yep, just those. All right. So overall, that's a nice, clean, compact build. It's well executed. I got really nothing to... I don't think there's really anything I would change up here, except for, like I said, the Herculex. It's not lit up. That's about the only thing that I'd say, hey, you know, it'd be cool if that was lit up. But otherwise, build looks really cool. Looks well done. It's clean and well executed. Let's go ahead and maybe do a little bit of a side-by-side right there. And let me go ahead and bring up his submission form here. All right. So this is going to be from Daryl DS. This was not his first build. And does the name have a theme? So, excuse me, does the build have a theme? Yes, the theme was blackout. And then does the build have a name? Is black air. And I think that makes sense. It's like air cooled, right? There's lots of fans in here, and blackout, definitely we can see that a lot of stuff is blacked out, right? So definitely I think the theme is on point and the name also works there, works well there. So let's see here in terms of his build configuration. I have to bring up his submission list right here, but I think this is, we can tell this is of course a deep cool based fan. We've got multiple Be Quiet based fans in there, but let me see if I can, I'll bring this up right here, but give me a second here. Budget was approximately about $4,000. What aspect were they most proud of the build is the ROG Strix 4090 and the GPU bracket. He's a big fan. He really likes the actual Herculex. He think it looks great in there. Is there anything that you would change about the build? He didn't note anything. I overall think, especially with the high-end performance that you're going to get in here, and very good cooling performance, there's not really much that you would want to change out right here. Took him about a day to put it together. He uses it predominantly for gaming, so Witcher, Spider-Man, Flight Simulator. What's his favorite function or feature? The cooler on the ROG Strix 4090 card. It's so well designed, and I don't plan on going liquid cooling. It keeps my card cool and quiet and fast. I definitely agree. Did a fantastic job, man. It's just a clean and well executed build. I got nothing to really kind of negate you on there in terms of anything that I would change out. So I overall think definitely thumbs up, man. Nice job, and I think Black Air definitely did you well there, man. Best of luck with your build. Let me see it right here. If I can go ahead and pull up the rest. The link there for that PC part picker submission is not working, so I think that's okay. But overall, man, very, very cool build. Thank you so much for submitting that one. All right, let's go ahead and go with our next build here. All right, let's see what we got next here. I don't even know. We got so many different ones. That was, I think, a good one to start off with, though. I think this one's kind of cool. Let's go with Aaron. Hopefully I'm saying this right. This is Aaron, and Aaron, his name of his build is Fluffy. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Fluffy. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here. Let me open up his submission form here, guys. All right, got a submission form there. Let's bring up his images here. All right. Ooh, very, very interesting. Okay, cool. So we've got already a stat display, which is pretty cool right there. We've got a vertically mounted card. This is actually our older ROG Strix series. Still a really cool and distinct ID design, but there's something that's going on right here. You can already see in terms of the color play. It looks like they probably removed the shroud and they painted the shroud. And I think they painted probably both of these parts. I don't even think this coloring looks like the default coloring that we have on the actual shroud. So I think he painted both parts. This is pretty interesting. So vertically mounted, we then got an ROG Strix board back here. And then we can see that we've got a water block that's in here. This is pretty interesting right here. With this block, of course, with the integrated actually readout information right here. Some cool little runs. I like the runs in terms of that taking a little bit of extra time to not necessarily obstruct this section right here. So to give availability in terms of the IO shroud and the ID design and the lighting, and then kind of go with this tight. These tighter bends are a little bit more tricky. You know, definitely some material sometimes is a little bit more I'd say it's easier to kind of go with this, you know, whether you're talking PETG, PMMA, you know, acrylic, there can be some variances in that in terms of how tight you can sometimes get some of these like 90s or some of these tight bends right here, but overall pretty clean, pretty well executed, nicely done. This is a pretty interesting one. If you notice right here, this bend kind of runs over the res and then kind of goes over onto this side and then goes up. So that's pretty kind of cool. So taking a look here, okay, got added in a little bit of accents there with some of the ROG stickers. Cable management, nicely done. A lot of zip ties definitely have been used here in this build. Always want to be a little bit careful. You don't want to get too tight with your zip ties. You don't want to crimp in or potentially kind of cause an issue with the cable. But overall, it's pretty nicely managed right here, isolated all down. I tend to prefer hook and loop faster. Zip ties can, I think, look cleaner than hook and loop fasteners, but zip ties, you potentially usually have to cut it and to be able to go ahead and kind of adjust your cables. So that's the reason why I prefer a hook and loop fastener. But, you know, preference is entirely up to you. You can see right here, we've got a little bit of a splitter right here to be able to have some flexibility for the additional fans, probably running to a chassis fan lead. Got your ARGB cables. We got some mechanical drives. But overall, this is pretty well managed for everything that we have going in there in terms of all those fans, all the other solutions that we have in there in terms of what could be connecting to a chassis fan header or could be connecting to an ARGB header, right? I like the color scheme. Color scheme is cool. It's got these like kind of synthwave vibes, right? Of course, with your blues, your purples that are in there. That plays really well with the silver, and then of course the black that you have there. So works well. Yeah, now definitely. Okay, so maybe this is the native color right here, and then they painted this part white, which is pretty cool. Is it paint or is it a dip? I'm not sure. Either which way, it's nicely done. Give them credit there. Definitely, it's a well executed mod there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's definitely a cool kind of distinct build, and it's kind of interesting to be able to see. I think the kind of the separation there in terms of kind of the color scheme, right? Where, you know, they didn't necessarily kind of go for like white, they didn't go for black, right? They kind of went for a little bit of this kind of inherent contrast, and I think it actually worked out pretty well in terms of giving you kind of a different kind of look and feel to the system. Let me see right here if we can have a couple of them open right there. I think those two kind of cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look right here at his submission form. All right, so this is going to be from Aaron, and say, does the build have a theme? Black and white. What are the 3 words that you would use to describe the build? Is simple, neat, and clean. Okay, and my daughter named it. His daughter named the system Fluffy. All right, hey, you can't go wrong with that, right? The daughter says it's called Fluffy. There's nothing wrong with that. We've got an ROG Strix Z490F. He upgraded it, adding in a Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth card in there. Updated the GPU as well that was originally installed in there. So it's got an ROG Strix 2060 Advanced Edition, right, with a painted shroud. Then it's got a Core i7 11700 in there. He's got let's see, 4 8GB DIMMs in there that are installed, some Corsair Dominators. Then got Samsung 980, PCIe, NVMe M.2 SSD, Seagate 2 terabyte and 1 terabyte HDD, a 1200 watt power supply, and that's all inside of that Corsair 4000X, along with essentially a number of ID cooling fans for the chassis and for the radiators. Bits Power Touch Aqua CPU block, and then the Touch Aqua 240 and 360 radiator, Bits Power fittings, and Bits Power 14mm PETG. He's got a Biskey pump and reservoir in there, and then also some Freeze Mod and 90-degree elbow fittings. Okay, very, very cool. Overall, the total cost in terms of the budget was about $1,800. What were they most proud of for the build? I built for the love of computers. I'm not a hardcore gamer. I just wanted to build a CPU, set up some, and I just wanted to build the CPU setup, and some of my friends always are asking me to help when they wanted to build a POC. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's some of us out there, you know, is that it's cool to just kind of have a system. They're maybe not necessarily like super doing one specific thing on it, right? It ends up just kind of being their daily driver. But, you know, they appreciate kind of just the hobby and the fun to be able to put together a system. So definitely nothing wrong with that, man. And it came out really well. It's a very cool looking system. Is there anything you would change about the build? I think I'd go with a GPU water block. And then maybe also a distro plate, right? And then also upgrade to an RG mechanical keyboard, if I can hopefully separate the budget, right? So yeah, I don't know if you'd have to go with a distro. I mean, a distro could be kind of interesting, but I really do like the lines you went with. If you kind of went with a distro, you would say goodbye to some of these cooler lines. The bad thing I think about a distro is sometimes it forces a little bit kind of more perpendicular type of lines. I sometimes appreciate the little bit kind of more formed lines that you have when you don't have a distro and you're kind of figuring out how to route the paths. But, you know, distros can look kind of cool because they kind of give you another visual component as far as a reference point for not only the liquid and potential lighting. So they can be interesting. You know, just all depends on what your preference is, right? The GPU block, for sure, you know, you could add a GPU block, but I think there's definitely a cool aesthetic that you have here that I think works pretty well. But, you know, you can definitely go. I mean, we talked about this in yesterday's graphics card stream, where I think that both work. Sometimes having, you know, just the CPU blocked and not the GPU, right? As opposed to having, of course, both always blocked, right? How long did it take him to put together a system? About a day to 2 days, right? In terms of just kind of getting everything set up and then ultimately checking everything. He does do a little bit of gaming, some Genshin Impact, some Ghost Warrior 3, UT3, Call of Duty, and Doom. Very, very cool. His favorite function feature is essentially ASUS Aura Sync, and he also really loves the USB BIOS flashback and Easy Flash features to be able to update his UEFI BIOS. Pretty cool, man. Great job. Gets a definite thumbs up from me, man. Nice build. All right, so let's go. Let's see what we got. Let's keep moving this along. What are we gonna go to next? Well, this is kind of interesting. I think this one could be kind of cool. Yeah, you know, I think sometimes when we're taking a look at systems, right, we don't necessarily always count the people that kind of sometimes are coming up from a build where they might essentially kind of have, you know, maybe like an upgraded pre-existing system. And I think that's a legitimate user base, right, is that they upgrade their system, right? They've started with essentially a pre-build and then they kind of maybe customize it. So I think Blake here has actually got a couple of different ones in here. So let's go and take a look here at what Blake's got. So. All right, and let's go ahead and bring up his submission form here. All right, we've got his setup right here. All right, I think we got everything. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here. So got, yeah, definitely you can see this is like a gaming streaming kind of setup because you got one monitor right here, got a camera, got another monitor right here in that vertical, right? So you've got your Discord, right? And you've got another vertical setup, you've got your lights. It's actually a 2 PC system that we have set up right here. He's got his controller, this is, you know, and his mic, so it's definitely set up to be doing some gaming and kind of dedicated streaming right here. We can see in this one, he's got an RG Helios. This is the RG Evangelion chassis, one of my absolute favorite chassis. AK Mod here absolutely did one of my absolute favorite mods that I saw when we did our Evangelion stuff. So if you guys haven't checked that out, make sure to check it out. Absolutely stunning stuff. We actually did feature it in a prior PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Here, only thing I'm immediately going to say is I'm not usually a fan of having LEDs be so directly visible. I think they're a little bit hard and flash. I know some people like it. Usually I prefer them to kind of be angled inwards, maybe have actually some diffusion on them so they're a little bit softer to look at. So I might maybe play around with the positioning to either have them go up and against something to kind of bounce the light back, right, and have a little bit more of a fill, or you could actually diffuse these and to have it be a little bit of a softer strip. But you know, that's a personal preference, and sometimes also depending on the angle that you're looking at, it can kind of come out one direction kind of over the other, right? Now here you can see one of the reasons why I absolutely love that chassis. I mean, it's got such a really cool design there with the front tempered glass and the ID image. I also really like that they didn't put in RGB fans into the front to kind of, I think, detract from the really cool ID design that chassis does have. And here it's actually got one of our G series. This is one of our high-end dedicated ROG gaming desktops, but I think he's actually gone ahead and customized that a bit and swapped out some of the actual components that are in there. If we take a look right in here, of course, he has some little customized animations in there for his GIF display setup. And here we can see a little bit more of a tour there of the Evangelion-based build right here. So let's see. So he's got his RG Strix card in there. Interesting way to split the cable. I think definitely probably for a lot of people, they might note, hey, maybe go with a custom cable right there to just maybe clean that up a little bit. But definitely the adapter cable works in. I can see probably maybe your perspective of like splitting that was to maybe not put as much pressure, but there's enough room in the Helios that I think I probably would have just run the cable straight down this and have that be a little bit cleaner, as opposed to kind of running it over from the top and then running it down to the bottom. So I would probably change up that a little bit, but otherwise, you know, everything is looking pretty clean there in that regard. Pretty cool right here. So he's actually got a crosshair board. You can see that he's got, of course, the customization in the Anime Matrix display, which is pretty cool. So he's got one of the extreme boards. He got the OLED Live Dash display in there that he's also gone ahead and played around with, which is pretty cool. Taking a little bit of a closer look on the inside right there, we can see pretty good job. You could probably tighten that cable up there a little bit, but I'm digging the actual color theme vibe. So I can see kind of this like greens and purples kind of vibe there. So it goes with the Evangelion base kind of setup, right? And I like actually this little color scheme that kind of works against the green as well, but still kind of ties in with the purple. So I'm definitely feeling that. And I like the simple connection right there, just as far as, the simple standoff that you're running in that regard. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So probably just a couple little subtle little things to probably kind of tighten up there in terms of the overall, the look and feel, but definitely a cool system in that regard. Let's go ahead and see if we can quickly take a look here at the submission form. So we go ahead and take a look right here. So this is going to be, so this was actually his first build. So props, man. So kudos, man. In the chat, let's go ahead and just give him some love there. It's always cool to be able to actually see somebody join into the PCDIY community for the first time and be able to actually do their build. So I think that as a first-time builder, the cool thing is just getting everything up and running and working, right? You know, just actually having a system that works is the big kind of success part. And then, you know, as you learn more, you can kind of help to kind of fine-tune and make certain improvements. And that's where I'm saying that, you know, some of those little things you can tell as being kind of a first-time builder, you've got the opportunity to be able to kind of tweak those. Does the build have a theme? Just pretty much being awesome. 3 words that you would use to describe the build is beautiful, beastly, and brilliant. Does the build have a name? It's NV. I like that. That's pretty interesting. So for the actual chassis, right, it's the ROG Helios EVA edition, right? And then he's got the Crosshair X670 Extreme. He's got an ROG Strix 4080. He then has, of course, the Kraken 73 there for the AIO cooler, 7950X, and then he's got G-Skill Flare C6000 MT memory in there, so that's pretty sweet. So overall, this is a very high-end system, about $6,000 he's put into it. What is he most proud of? Just overall the entire build and having an awesome gaming system. I would definitely agree. Is there anything they would like to change about the build? Is he would love to be able to upgrade to a Ryujin 2 once it's back in stock. So yeah, we'll have the Ryujin 2 probably back in stock in the next week or so. So it should be here, not too distant future. How long did it take him to build the system? About 4 to 6 hours. He likes to do some gaming, so some Call of Duty, some Fortnite, and then just, you know, random Steam games. Favorite ASUS function and feature? All of it, everything. I love ASUS for its overall kind of feature set, its durability, its functionality, not to mention how awesome it looks, man. Well, you know what, Ben, you did a fantastic job, man. Excuse me, Blake, you did a really great job, especially I think for your first build. So it's awesome to be able to see that you've got a really cool system that, especially with the specs here, this is going to last you a really, really long time, man. So thank you so much for submitting it to the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, man. And best of luck with your build, man. Pretty cool. All right, so we've got that build. All right, let's go ahead and see what else we got here. Ooh, let's go with a little bit of a sleeper. Let's go with the sleeper here. You know, it's not a sleeper because it's not a true sleeper, but I think we had Kevin here, so let's go ahead and take a look at the brother build. And then we're gonna go. Maybe kind of crazy here with maybe a water build. All right, so let's take a look here at Kevin Daly, his brother's build. Okay, so I'm assuming it's a build for his brother, right? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look right here. Okay. So this is going to be, there we go. All right. Okay, so we've got nice clean. Kevin's always on point with his cable management. You know, his systems are going to look clean, well weighed out in terms of everything. He usually balances a lot of different stuff where he's pulling sometimes parts from something else, you know, kind of repurposing something. So there's sometimes like a little bit of mix and match that's kind of going off, but always a really nice clean attention to detail in terms of kind of getting everything up and running. It's gone with a definitely nice big chassis here, so there's tons of room to be able to upgrade and be able to kind of have flexibility over time as we go through it. I like actually the color blocking with the white and the black, and we've got some core components in there. So let's go ahead and take a closer look right here. That's the one thing I'll always say though, for me on the split chamber design on the 011 is I'm not a fan usually of this angle, just because it doesn't, I think, look that great. It's just a big glass panel, right? I think, you know, sure, if maybe you have something like a distro plate in there, but this chassis looks really best always from the side profile, in my opinion. So this is actually the shot that you really always want to see, because the front really doesn't make sense. Even if it has a really cool looking build in there, doesn't usually have that strong of aesthetic on the front, which is part of the reason why I still think that chassis that have a strong front facial ID design still really do have, I think, their place, right, in the market, right, because they have a very clean level of visibility, right? So let's see right here. This looks like we've got a Prime Series based motherboard, probably like a Hyper 212 Black Edition base cooler in there. Nice ROG 6 based graphics card in there. It's got all your cables just nicely clean and routed in there, running through all the cable management points, right? This is nice, clean, nothing to complain about. Then some Lian Li Unifans that we got in there with a little bit of accent lighting. Definitely, man, clean, well executed, nothing to complain about there. And I like the color scheme. The cool thing about going with the white chassis too is you get a little bit of that reflection and get a little bit of the bounce lighting that's going on there. And looks like you went with the, I think these are the G-Skill Royals, the Trident. These Royals always look a little bit extra luxe, right? Because they just have that little bit of like that premium vibe in there that's pretty cool. So overall, I think that's pretty, a nice little addition that you got right there. Let's go ahead and yeah, I think nice, clean, well executed, man. What I expect from definitely from Kevin when we talk about a build right there. Let's go ahead and yeah, let's leave it right, I think there. That's a good image to focus in on. And let me go ahead and bring up the submission. So this is going to be definitely not his first build, because he's had quite a number, and he's actually had different ones that we featured here on the stream. Does the build have a theme? It's just a clean ASUS based build. 3 words used to describe the build is clean, simple, and cool. Absolutely nailed it. Definitely what I would expect from Kevin. Clean, simple, and cool. And definitely also I think with a little bit of foresight for kind of flexibility and upgrading over time, because usually Kevin's one of those people that he's always kind of looking for an opportunity sometimes if he can pick something up to be able to kind of retrofit, add, or make an improvement, whether it's maybe with a cooler, maybe an upgrading this component or changing out that component. So I think also going with a bigger chassis gives them that flexibility to customize the aesthetics and different components at a later time too, right? Does the build have a name? His brother's build. Core components right in here. Definitely looks like a nice, really kind of, almost like bang for your buck type of build right here, right? So you got an 11700, very, very solid gaming-centric CPU. No overclocking support, but when you talk about threads and frequency, this is a really solid CPU part. You then pair that up with something simple and effective like a 212, which is going to keep it cool and is going to keep it quiet. That works great. You then do a prime B650 based motherboard. Fantastic, because you don't need overclocking support right here. You just want some standard, you want some standard CPU support. Be able to go ahead and have some modern connectivity on here in terms of the I/O, right? Maybe support things like PCI M.2, and you're good to go, right? And this board's going to get you covered in all those regards. He's got some G-Skint Trident Royals, as I noted in there. 1080 in terms of the GPU, which is still a great graphics card. 1080 is still very capable in a lot of games, especially kind of esports games, indie games, and even moderately capable in some of the more demanding kind of AAA games, right? Especially if you're talking like a 1080p resolution or maybe entry 1440p, depending on your settings, right? Then he's got an Intel 660p 2 terabyte SSD in there. That's all powered by a Thor 850 watt power supply. That's all inside of an O11, the Dynamic XL ROG edition. And then that's all powering a VG258QM 240 hertz. So yeah, he's looking at 1080p 240 hertz gaming. So definitely this makes sense. $800 was the overall budget that was spent. He's really happy with how the cable management turned out, which I would agree, definitely clean and well done. Is there anything that would change about the build? Hope to get a white ASUS based water cooler, so an AIO. Yeah, definitely. We've got the ROG Strix LC and we have the Ryu. I think, price to performance, probably the LC makes more sense, probably like a 240 LC. For some people, they might go with the 360, but really for this, I don't know that it makes sense to go with the 360 for this CPU, especially if you're not overclocking it. So a 240 would really be way more than you would really need. How long did it take him to put together the system? About 3 hours to transfer the build to a new system. The new chassis. He's generally playing Roblox, Elden Ring, and Overwatch 2, and his favorite function feature is going to be ASUS Aura Sync. Pretty cool. Let me see. So Miguel, as noting, is how many radiators could you install? So, you got a lot of support, of course. In this chassis, there's a lot of flexibility. So you could have radiator here at the top, you could have radiator here, and you could have a radiator actually down at the bottom. For most people, though, you're probably only going to go with maybe a 1 or 2 radiator configuration. You probably wouldn't go with something like 3 radiators. That would be kind of extreme, but you can definitely go with quite a number. We have a very similar type of chassis. It's our GT502 chassis. So that's our split chamber design. So if you're looking to kind of have that flexibility, I can show you guys that one really quick. I'm probably pretty sure that you probably know. Hopefully you're aware of it. If not, let me go ahead and show it to you right here. This is our split chamber chassis, which we have available. I also like the ID design a little bit more than the O11. Of course, I'm biased, but you can see you've got lots of room right here where you could go with a radiator up here. You could go, of course, with the radiator here. You could do actually cooling down here. And also the really cool part is on the GT502 is that in the back here, you could also go with fans or you could do a radiator. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you could kind of change things up and kind of play around with radiator support. Oh, did Kevin actually throw us a little bit of a comment? Let's go ahead and see what Kevin said there. So Kevin notes, I wanted to give him my Helios so he could get the Hyperion, but he really wanted the Lianli. Wow, really? I think that's a bummer. Hey, totally, that's really nice of you to just support your brother. I think the Helios looks cooler than the O11. That's my personal opinion. And based on the build that you have there, I think it would have worked perfectly fine, right? Because the Helios still has tons of space in it. Yeah, but, still, definitely the O11, definitely nothing wrong with it, and they're a fantastic partner. And hey, it's the ROG certified version too, right? So let's see right there. Mike Russo says, "TUF logo for the win." Yeah, no, I definitely, it's subtle, but that little TUF logo, right? It's just clean. It's nice in there. It's embossed, right? It's just a little clean, and you get that little RGB accent. I think it looks great. So, yeah, I'm biased, of course. I work for ASUS, right? But it is what it is. But overall, man, Kevin, great build, and really cool to be able to see what you did there for your brother. All right, let's keep banging these guys out here. Let's see what we've got else right here. I think this one's pretty cool, right? I think some people remember this one from the group. So let me go ahead and bring this one up here. And this is going to be, hopefully Stefanos. Yes, this is from Stefanos. All right, Stefanos. Let's take a look here. Okay, and this is going to be Black Spider version 3. Okay, well, I only have version 3 to look at. I'd love to see what version, I guess, version 1 and 2 looked like, right, when he had them. So, but let's go ahead and take a look here. So really cool shots already here in terms of the overall photos. So this is pretty interesting here in terms of the overall look, that he looks like shot it on the railroad tracks. Definitely ASUS does not endorse this. This is definitely hazardous to your health. You know, don't do don't do this, right? But overall, really kind of cool, just overall kind of setup and aesthetic that we've got right here when we take a look. Very cool open frame based chassis and some massive cooling going on right here, where you can see we've got, of course, an open frame. We have the board, CPU, we've got the GPU, we've got two massive of course distros right here, right, and then of course tons of radiators with tons of fans. But I think we've got some additional shots that are going to kind of go into kind of showing this off. So there we go, getting a little bit closer right here. Now, cool here because we actually have Fantex blocks. You don't generally see Fantex that often. I'm actually a really big fan of actually Fantex water blocks. I think they have a very distinctive, kind of cool, almost edgy type of design compared to say something like from EK or definitely something like from Optimus, take for instance. So definitely I think it's cool to be able to just see a little bit of a different ID style when you're talking about different types of water cooling blocks. I'm really actually digging the color scheme right here. So we have black and then we have this gold, but the gold you can see has a little bit of almost of a sateen type finish to it, which I think is pretty cool. Definitely kind of gives it a vibe. I can kind of guess the vibe with Spider. I guess if you kind of think about legs, that there's like kind of this big opened kind of design there with kind of multiple limbs. I don't know if I immediately kind of think of Spider, right? Because I don't see kind of webbing or maybe a specific number that would kind of correlate to a Spider, but I get kind of some of the vibes. I actually get a little bit more of a Lux type of vibe to it just because of the really nice finishing that we have here in terms of the cables. And I absolutely love the black, the gold, and then the kind of the silver accenting done that's right here. So that looks really nice as well. So you guys can see, of course, you know, not massive crazy runs in or anything, but also to have that consistency in the parallel lines, that's actually really nicely done. It can be very easy sometimes that if you didn't have kind of your symmetrical lines that were consistent, it'd be pretty easy for your eye to go, this one's off, this one's a little bit kinked, this one's a little bit kind of tweaked out. I also even like, this is pretty cool here with the actual angled elbow fittings, which are pretty kind of cool. That's a pretty cool little kind of subtle tweak that's cool right there. You can see right here we've got this is actually the drain. That's a pretty cool, just little nice little addition to be able to make sure you can easily go ahead and drain out your loop. That's a cool little touch right there. Of course you can see these nice distros integrated, which is pretty slick as well. And just massive cooling, where you can see, of course, ultra large beefy rads, and then you of course got push and pull configurations on both of the rads, for this rad and for this rad. The only thing, and it makes sense for such a high-end build, go 4DIMM, but with 4DIMM you would be limiting some, of course, the DRAM scaling performance. It would make more sense for this to be only a 2DIMM based configuration if you're really talking about top level of performance, but definitely from an aesthetic performance, I know people sometimes are favoring the 4DIMM setup. This is a really cool shot. Yeah, this is a very cool shot. And there we go. We can see it lit up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah. So there we go. We can see now where kind of the black spider kind of goes in. So we actually have the black Spider-Man costume with the actual gold accents. That really kind of carries through along then with the gold little accents that we have right there, which is pretty sweet. Gold accents that we have right there. This nice core illumination, which is really bold, really vibe, centralized right there between not only the ROG, of course, poly mode display, then of course with the Fantex block, and then the Fantex block for the GPU, and then a little bit of RGB accent right there, because there you go, Spider-Man, he's feeling the vibes there from ROG. So I really like the way that turned out, man. That's really nice. It's very cool. Definitely a distinct build. I don't think I've seen kind of anything immediately kind of bringing to mind that would make me think that kind of this build. So yeah, it's overall pretty sweet. Let's go ahead and put up maybe 2 shots here. Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, I think those two you can kind of see it kind of side by side, right? There you go, in the daytime and in the nighttime, guys, right? Definitely show some Stefanos some love right there, but I think pretty cool build. So let's see right here what we have. So does the build have a theme? The theme is Black Spider. 3 words to describe the build is elegant, strong, and unique. I would definitely agree is that It does have an elegant vibe to it because I think that the, of course, hardline paths that you've gone, right, they're refined, cleaned, and simple. So that does definitely, I think, align with an elegance. There is definitely a strong, though, vibe to it, right, with having such dense, beefy radiators. Take, for instance, the black, right, and kind of the positioning, which is so symmetrical, inherently adds strength. Anytime we see symmetry in something, there's a sense of confidence and strength, right? And unique, it definitely is a unique approach, right? It's not a standard just water-cooled ATX type build, right, inside of a chassis. Does it have a name? Black Spider V3. In terms of hardware, we got Cooler Master Frame 700, which is essentially the quote-unquote chassis. Maximus Z790 Hero board, 13900K. We then have, let's see, a CPU block from Fantex, 64 gigabytes. Wow, 7800 MT memory. Definitely not running 7800 memory in a 4DIMM configuration. So I wonder what the actual 4DIMM configuration is going to be. If he's really lucky and has got a decent CPU, 13900K, maybe you can get 6000, 6200. I don't think probably much more than that. So again, 7800, that would be pretty tough to hit on a 4DIMM board. But, you know, that's pretty cool. He's got a water block 4090 that's on there with that Fantex GPU block in there. Then, of course, with a vertical mount V2 riser that's also in there. That's all powered by a PX 1300 watt power supply, 2 Rajentic radiators, right? They're 240 base radiators and distro, right? And then also 2 Rajentic C360Ds, right, that are in there, and then a Waveshare 11.9 IPS touch display. That's pretty cool. So this is actually a touch display. That's pretty cool. And then 12 Be Quiet fans, the Pure Wings PWM. Could be pretty cool if those would have been the RG Strix XF120s, but the Be Quiets are very, very nice. And then EKWB fittings that are on there, black nickel and gold ring. And then Corsair Hydro XT Satin, so that makes sense. That kind of has that sateen finish on there. Sleeve cables, custom cables by Manos, and then also then Fazgear custom sleeve cable for the GPU by Fazgear, right? About $7,000 is the overall price point for the total build. What are they most proud of is the symmetry. Is there anything they would change about the build? Definitely not. I mean, this is pretty much about as highest end as a build you can get. Amazing work, time and effort has been put into it, so I could definitely see how there's not really anything you would really want to change. How long did it take to build the system? About 3 days, about, I guess, 18 hours collectively is what he notes right there. Probably some maybe even additional time in terms of planning and everything like that, right? Definitely used for gaming, so Assassin's Creed, Spider-Man Remaster, Forza, Cyberpunk. Also for some work, Photoshop, OBS, DaVinci, Music Maker, and Virtual DJ. What is his favorite ASUS function or feature here is he's a huge Maximus fan. His last motherboard was also a Z490 Maximus Formula. So, man, fantastic. Thank you so much for being Team ROG, Team Maximus. I think you did a killer job here. Pretty sweet, right? So definitely we're getting some hearts right there from the overall community right there. Kevin notes, yes, 7K. Definitely you are paying some premium. A lot of that is in the water cooling. I mean, I don't know what he paid for the 4090. That's not cheap on its own, right? A 4090 is going to be pretty expensive. So, you know, you could have even just stepped this to a 4070 Ti and you literally you would have dropped like probably like, you know, maybe $1,200, $1,400, right? On that, right? And then the memory also, you know, just with it having like a nice 6,000, 6,400 kit, you could literally get that for a few $100s versus this kit configuration specifically, you probably may be looking at over like $650, almost $700, right? So you could see just like on the GB and the memory, you could see how you could scale this down to be quite a bit more cost quote effective too, right? The density of the rads and some other things right there, but it's a super flagship, awesome build, right? It's pretty cool. So definitely, man, kudos Stefanos. Very, very cool. Happy to be able to show it off here on the stream. All right. So let's go ahead, and I think we can fit in maybe 1 or 2 more guys before we wrap it up. So let's go ahead and let's get ready to take a look here. Give me a second. What do I got right here? Oh, this one's pretty cool. Yeah, let's go with a Diego. Diego has a B spin. So let's go ahead and B spin. I think this might be kind of a throw. I think it's Star Wars, right? All right, so this is going to be B spin. Let me bring up his submission form. All right. Okay, so he gives us a vertical picture. We can't see too much into it, but we can already see it's going to be a white themed build. Very clean, really nicely executed. He's going with that vertical mount for that white ROG Strix card. Looks really nice. Can see that already nice kind of color scheme there with a little bit of that kind of blue and purple kind of vibes. It goes really, really well with the white. And of course with an ROG Strix-A board. So let's go ahead and just take a little bit of a closer look here as we kind of take a closer look at it. Yeah. This is pretty nicely done. Really interesting right here. The 011, it's not as optimally suited like the way that we have our GT502 to be able to use the support. I love this little hack here that Diego's done. So he's actually put the support, if you notice, directly on the internal ribbing for the fan, right? So he has actually the included support actually sitting right there on top of actually one of the fan ribs, which give the fan essentially structural integrity. So it's a pretty cool little way to be able to mitigate essentially some of that sag and be able to create a really nice presentation that also looks still clean and well defined for your actual build. So that's pretty cool, man. And so there we can see with the lighting off and with the lighting on, they both look fantastic. Of course, you can see how really nice and clean and white that looks. Now, personally for me, actually, I think black systems look equally as clean. And a lot of people only think that white systems are clean, which to me doesn't make sense. So I don't usually refer to kind of white systems as clean. I usually kind of refer to them more as kind of bold and bright. But I think that's probably some people's kind of perspective when they see it like that. But really, really nicely done, really nicely laid out. You didn't have to go with the push and pull configuration for sure. It's not needed. Could have been interesting to maybe see what that little bit of additional spacing gives you in terms of breathing room, but that will give you some potential top fill lighting if you're using essentially also RGB fans that are on there, and definitely fills out the entire look and feel for the entire system. And your cables are pretty well managed right here too, man. It's hard to kind of make sure that you don't have anything obstructing anything, but this is pretty well done. And when we go over into the lighting zone, we can see this is all coming through really nicely, really cleanly routed in terms of the back right here. I love that you're even seeing subtle things like right here, like passing the cable in between the heat sinks, going over the PCB on the motherboard into the back, where that's a nice kind of clean routing path. Here also really nice clean routing path. Now vertically you could get one of those 90 angle adapters, and then you could also get a white cable from Cable Mods, and you could then have that even better lock in kind of the total kind of white theme. But I think already this looks fantastic. So personally, I don't even think you need to change it overall. Yeah, this is really just nicely clean and well executed. I mean, there's really nothing to kind of note on there. And then we can, of course, have that full vibe. Once we're actually in the dark, you can actually see that. I think it really works. And this kind of silver accents that we have on the card, I think also really complement the bold and bright lighting that you get, of course, with a white themed system where everything's kind of reflecting off of each other. You get a little bit of that kind of shimmer effect that looks really cool. Yeah, it's about the only thing right there is just maybe swapping that one out to maybe a custom white cable, and that would be it, because you of course already made the investment in the white cable. You can see right there for your 24 pin, but otherwise looks great, man. Love that you can really nicely cleanly see the ROG logo right there. You've got your Kraken just at the clean, simple temperature. Those uni fans that are all set up, of course, in there with the Lian Li chassis. That 40 series graphics card there in white looks great with the ROG Strix. It's clean, it's well executed. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to negate you on right there. You really nice job in terms of overall the layout of the build. So let me go ahead and see if we can put maybe one or two images there. Most of these are vertical, so let's go with that one, and maybe I think that one, right? Yeah, that might be a little bit better. Yeah, I think that works pretty well. Okay, so this is going to be from Diego, and wow, this was Diego's first build, guys. Let's go ahead and give him props. Wow, first build, nailed it, super clean, nice cable management. Even the little hack right here with this, I got nothing to complain on, right? Like I said, I mean, you didn't even need to go with the push and pull. It's great that you did. You know, sometimes it can add a little bit of turbulence on there, right? But, you know, overall, I think that's entirely fine. So you did a fantastic job for a first build. I definitely know first time builders that couldn't even pull it off that cleanly and that well executed. So kudos to you there. Does the build have a theme? A white premium Strix build. What are 3 words to describe the build? Is powerful, clean, and Strix. Definitely that comes through. Does the build have a name? Is B-Spin the Cloud City in Star Wars? Definitely comes through. ROG Strix Z790-A, a white Strix 4090, an ASUS Thor 1000 watt, and then a 13900K series CPU. He's packing pretty much flagship series hardware. This is an absolute beast of a system when it comes to performance, and it looks great. Man, you killed it. The budget for the system, about $6,000. What were they most proud of is that the white Strix, the white ROG Strix 4090. I spent weeks contacting Micro Center, ASUS, Newegg, researching and finding discords and chats, and ultimately driving 3 hours almost every day to see if they got one. Getting one was the most satisfying reward for me this year, man. You know what? Thank you. I'm humbled by your dedication and appreciate your support to be able to get a white ROG Strix card. I know for a lot of people, they proverbially call them the unicorn. So man, thank you so much. It's awesome that you spent all that time and effort to be able to pick up the card, but it absolutely looks fantastic in your build. So kudos to you, man. It really does, I think, bring together the entire look and feel for the system. Is there anything that they would change about the build? I would like, a white ASUS LC CPU cooler. I was trying really hard to get one, but unfortunately couldn't find one in stock. Yeah, depending on when you got them, they might have not been available, or they might have been sold out, but the Strix LC2 has been sold out, but it's going to get restocked shortly. And, you know, maybe if you can sell somebody your Kraken, you know, you can pick up the ROG Ryogen. The Ryogen 3 is in white, looks absolutely fantastic, and it even further matches, I think, a little bit better because the actual housing is also actually a knurled metal housing, when it really complements that premium metal feel that also the ROG 640 has. But to be honest, you can save that money. It already looks fantastic, looks really, really great already in there, but it would be pretty cool to see the Strix board, the Ryu, and then that Strix graphics card, right? How long did it take them to put together the system? To gather the parts, maybe a month, and then took them about a day to put together the system. What he's used the system for? I'm all about high fidelity gaming. Yeah, with hardware like this, definitely I would be saying you're talking about high fidelity 1440p gaming or 4K gaming on mod games like Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, Hogwarts, and Red Dead Redemption. Yeah, this is a system that's built for high image quality, definitely for modding and getting from the best experience from games right now. Favorite ASUS function or feature? I love how polished the products are. When I received the white 4090, I was in total shock of how brilliantly crafted the package and the GPU were. Incredibly sleek, and my eyes even got watery looking at the thing. I felt like I was opening a magical box from the heavens. Wow, man, that's some loves, man. I need to talk to our team and put that one in quotes and use that out on social media channels. That one is pretty awesome, man. Thank you so much, man. The love, I definitely feel it, man. Thank you so much. That's pretty sweet. You did a fantastic job, man. Great build. Thumbs up, and definitely, man, I hope you definitely enjoy it this weekend, man. Having just a great time with your system. So overall, guys, that wraps up our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Rest assured, we've got another week that will pack in even more PCDIY Builder Spotlight submissions next week. But that takes care of us for this week. As always, guys, I thank you guys for joining us in the stream. If you guys are not part of our ASUS PCDIY group, man, make sure to go ahead and join us. We've got an amazing community there of, like I said, of over 40,000 members. I'd love to have you in that group. If you're interested in finding out about upgrades, overclocking, insights, modding, whatever, we have pretty much builders across the board. We've got professionals in there. We have modders. We've got water coolers. We've got overclockers. We've got myself that, you know, have years in the industry and can probably hopefully give you insight on anything you're probably looking on, and definitely help to give you guidance if you're looking to be able to build or upgrade your system as well. So thank you for everybody that submitted, and thank you guys for checking out the stream, man. So enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hopefully it's not too cold wherever you might be, and hopefully you guys enjoy some gaming tonight and through the weekend. So take care, take it easy. See you guys next week.